Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700. Happy to be with you on another beautiful day in Salt Lake City. Really wish that tomorrow was a home game because the forecast is delightful for fall football here in Salt Lake. It's going to be a little bit humid and a little bit hot, a lot bit hot actually, in Stillwater. For all of you traveling, I hope you do so safely. We have a fun show lined up for you today on ESPN 700. Bill Riley, the voice of the Utes, joins me in about 30 minutes. Always look forward to that conversation. And quite frankly, I've had to skip it because I was traveling, doing fights. So looking forward to catching up with Bill. Alex Markham from Rivals for a little Utes insider information as well. We'll take a look back at the Jerome Miles commitment, what it means for Utah and that wide receiver room and their class moving forward. But, of course, we'll focus on the game as well. Dale Murphy, the should-be Hall of Famer. I will die on that hill. Baseball legend is going to join us to talk about Shohei Ohtani's game last night, the season that Ohtani is having, and, of course, Big League Utah as the Salt Lake Bees wrap up their tenure at the Smiths Ballpark and get ready to move to Daybreak. And hopefully things ramp up with Major League Baseball considering Salt Lake City as a future destination. We'll talk all those things with Dale Murphy. And a little red and blue in our number 3. Riley Nelson is going to swing by. Former BYU quarterback, color analyst for some time on the BYU broadcast. Riley Nelson to give us his insight on a huge, huge game in Provo. I mean, Kansas State might be the best team in the Big 12 Conference. Utah's the highest ranked. Kansas State might have the best quarterback right now in the Big 12 Conference. Avery Johnson is an absolute menace because of what he can do with his legs. Lee Sterling also going to drop by, give us his picks for the weekend. So lots of great stuff going on the show today. I know it's football season, but we're getting ready. This is the time of baseball where even the not-so-hardcore fans like myself start to wander an eye towards baseball because the postseason is beginning to take shape. Teams are clinching their playoff positions, et cetera, et cetera. Baseball postseason is phenomenal. And this year, if you've been paying attention all season long, congratulations to you. Can't do it. I can't do it 162 games. When we get our own local team, yes, because then I'll be able to go to the ballpark. But watching baseball on TV, can't do it. Shohei Ohtani, unless you've been living under a rock, you realize what this man has done. He's been putting together an historic season, and that's not in the hyperbolic way. That's not in like the, oh, yeah, this guy's making history because you're doing the Guinness Book of World Records thing. And you're finding the tiny little specifics, like it's never been done before, technically, where someone hits 3 home runs when it's 75 degrees and 40% humidity or higher. It's like this man is the first ever in more than a century of baseball to go 50 and 50. 50 home runs, 50 stolen bases, and he did it in emphatic fashion with a performance, a single-game performance for the ages. 10 runs batted in, 17 total bases, 3 home runs, 2 stolen bases, 6 for 6 at the plate. Shohei Ohtani just went out there in pursuit of this record of 50 and 50, and sorry, Marlins, you were the victims here. It's just like he was like, all right, I'm done having this talked about as a pursuit. I'm finished having this talked about as something that I might get this year. He gets to 50 and 50, then he actually gets to 51 and 50 because his 3rd home run was against a position player who the Marlins just brought in. Like, you're a shortstop and you're trying to throw pitches to Shohei Ohtani, he's going yard on you. Unbelievable performance for the ages to not only secure a playoff spot for the Dodgers, who have higher hopes than just making the playoffs. They want to be a World Series team, so they didn't really celebrate that one too much, but clinches a playoff spot, gets this unbelievable milestone for himself on the season, and also does it in one of the greatest single-game performances we have ever seen in baseball and maybe in professional athletics, period. James, I know you're a big baseball fan. James Peterson producing for us today, by the way. Shohei Ohtani, 50-50. Try to put it into context for the non-baseball folks.
I mean, it's nothing short of incredible. There's not really many other words to put it. I mean, we've seen plenty of 40-40s, although that is still an incredible thing to do in baseball. We've seen even more 30-30s, 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases, but that's also a remarkable year. Ronald Acuna Jr. last year winning the NL MVP with 41 homers and 70 stolen bases, and yet we've never had a 50-50 guy in the history of baseball, and we all know how long MLB goes back to. It's 1800s, late 1800s this goes back to, so to have someone to be able to do something that has never been done in 2024 is nothing short of amazing. And the way he did it, OC, 6 for 6, 3 homers, 5 extra base hits, 10 RBI, 2 stolen bases.
It's ridiculous.
The only thing he didn't do that he's capable of doing, but he's not doing right now because of the Tommy John surgery he underwent, is he didn't strike anybody out.
Okay, well
that was the only thing that he didn't do yesterday that he's capable of doing that he didn't do that you're able to do in a box score as a player in a game. It was incredible.
The wild thing about this season and it happening like this and his 50-50 is that he's also capable of being an elite major league pitcher.
Yes, he's been an all-star pitcher multiple times.
I mean, I've made the case several times this year already that Travis Hunter is the best football player in America right now in college football because he's an all-conference level performer at the wide receiver position and at the defensive back position. And you could make an argument that he's an all-America level performer at least one of those. And also he returns kicks. Like, he's the best player in America.
He does everything.
If he stays healthy all year, I will be stumping aggressively in the final weeks of the season and continuously that he should win the Heisman Trophy. Whether Colorado is a 4-win team or not, nobody else can do what he's doing. Nobody in the history of baseball has done what Shohei Ohtani did last night, reaching that 50-50 milestone. And also, he can be an all-star caliber pitcher. He deserves to be in the conversation already, very young, plenty of time left to develop in a career, as the best baseball player, the best all-around baseball player of all time. You could already make that case about Shohei Ohtani.
Which, again, given how long Major League Baseball history is, the fact that we might be able to say that about a guy who's playing in 2024 is bananas.
He's 30 years of age. Baseball is one of those sports that you could play into your mid-late 30s, even your 40s.
If you're a superstar, you can play in your 40s a little bit.
If you're Nolan Ryan, you could be pushing 50 by the time you get out of this game.
Remember Julio Franco, Braves and Mets first baseman? He was like 47 when he retired.
Bartolo
and a total
Colon.
outlier.
My God, Bartolo Colon's not even in shape and is like 48. You know what I mean? Albert Pujols, his birth certificate said he was in his 40s, but we know how that works.
Yeah, who knows?
He's probably in his 50s. It's unbelievable. And text coming in, 877-353-0700. Even without 50-50, having 10 runs batted in a single game is absolutely amazing. That's the thing about last night. Like, he was already going to be legendary. That performance is going to be talked about, is going to go down in the annals of baseball and professional sports history as one of the greatest things that anybody ever got to watch.
Yeah, Sarah Lang, I don't think she's with ESPN anymore, but baseball researcher, you hear them shout her out on Sunday Night Baseball a lot. I think she's the one who tweeted out yesterday. It could have been someone else, but fairly certain it was her. There's only been one of those games in MLB history. It just happened. 6 for 6, that many extra base hits, that many RBI, that many home runs, and multiple stolen bases. No one's done it. And it just so happened to be what put him as the only guy ever to have 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases in this season.
The National League was founded in 1876.
Yeah.
The American League in 1901, and they merged and cemented their cooperative agreement in 1903.
Yeah, the first World Series in 03.
So you have
1903.
You have 100 plus years of history in a sport that, yes, continues to get better and the science is involved. And if you go back to like the 1930s, who you had to hit these home runs off of were like, in the offseason, they were rail workers, whatever. We know that the context, but the sport has developed gradually over this time. And now you're seeing this like peak human performance by Shohei Ohtani. It's unreal. And not only did he achieve an historic milestone last night, but he had an historic game and single game performance that holds up against any in baseball and in pro sports as the greatest individual night or day we've seen. And because we're in Utah football season, that got me thinking about, all right, what's the best Ute individual game of all time? What's the best individual Utah football performance of all time? What's the best individual BYU football performance of all time? I know my answer for that one, and it probably won't be the most popular, but I put the question out on Twitter, and a lot of great suggestions, a lot of great responses to it, a lot of mentions of Joe Williams.
I was going to say, that's the one that pops into my head first. As Bill Riley says, who we're going to have on at 11:30, he's still running at the Rose Bowl.
Dude, just absolute legendary performance, and the circumstances as well. That makes me appreciate it even more because he came off the couch, right? He had walked away from the team. He had retired. He had said, I can't do this anymore. I'm having these issues, the sister situation. I got to go. I'm done. And then they're like, hey, dude, we need you, which was a really fascinating dynamic from a coaching staff to kind of understand where their roster was at, where the player was at, humility on both sides in coming together and saying, let's give this another try. And obviously it paid off for Joe Williams and for the Utes. That was a legendary performance and probably hard to beat. The one that came to mind immediately when I was thinking about it, because a part of this is, your proximity to the program while things were happening. I had transferred to Weber State at the time, but Eric Weddle had a game against San Diego State where he had 2 pick sixes and a rushing touchdown.
That's ridiculous.
It was also the holder on PAT.
The most impressive part of the game, by the way, is holding.
He also had a game against Air Force where he did basically the same thing. I think he had 2 touchdowns on the ground and a pick six or something like that. Or no, it was maybe a return touchdown. Like, of course, we should next time remind me, James, when we have Weddle on next week. I'm going to ask him what in his opinion, his best individual performance as a Ute was. But a couple options from Eric Weddle. Also, people came in at Real OC Sports, and I'd like you to weigh in on the text line, 877-353-0700, Dish Pros text line. You could call me. You could text me. Best individual performance you've seen from a Ute in a game ever. Nate Orchard at UCLA. A top 10 UCLA team. Brett Hundley, everyone feeling good about the Bruins. Nate Orchard sacked him 4 times in that game.
Wow.
Just put the fear of God into a guy who was on his way. And that was an epic performance and part of a record-setting season also at the University of Utah, similar to the Shohei Ohtani thing. Although, all due respect to any Utah record book, it's not quite the same as setting an all-time Major League Baseball record. But still, that was one of the great performances ever by a Ute. People weighed in as well with the suggestion of that 600-yard passing game from Scott Mitchell against Air Force.
Okay.
That came in a loss, by the way, which takes some shine off of it.
That's going way back in the Wayback Machine there. That's a good poll.
And look, you should do it because I said the question was
ever the
one that you've ever seen, and there's people that were there. There were people
absolutely.
who listened to the show that were there.
It's not old enough that there aren't people listening to the show to hear, but for me and you, that's going way back.
Yeah,
good poll by them.
It goes way back, but that's fine. The Mike Anderson Vegas Bowl was a good one. At that time, he had set the school record, 254 yards in an individual game, and it was a bowl game. And that was, this was the tail end of the Ron McBride situation, the Ron McBride era, and Steve Smith was out for that game, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, I love getting a phone call. One that is one of my favorites, and a lot of people suggested this, and it's coming in again on the text line. The best Ute performance, Dalton Kincaid in Salt Lake City against USC. 16 targets, 16 catches. Wow. Including the best individual catch I've ever seen. The best catch I've seen on that east sideline. I think it would put us in the northeast corner of the stadium. Extended fully, like he had to turn back to the ball, right? So he's facing the quarterback. He's catching this thing over his head. It's just gorgeous toe tap to make that an actual completion. Best catch I've been in person to see ever. Oh, I like this one coming in from 8431. Best individual performance from a Ute. Star Lotulelei, first half against USC. What year was that? Matt Khalil or Ryan Khalil. One of the Khalil brothers was the center for USC. Was an All-American. A guy who was going to go on to play double-digit years in the NFL. And Star Lotulelei made him look like a child in like the first quarter. That was one of the most impressive I'm better than you performances I've ever seen in my life.
Would that have been his last season in 2012 maybe?
Yeah, I think you're right.
It had to have been 11 or 12 because it was 12 era.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
his junior or senior year.
Whichever year USC came to Salt Lake City would have been the performance. But yes, what a great poll, 84-31. Star Lotulelei just said, "You're going to be my son today." I know that you are from like Hall of Fame caliber lineage, but today you're in my house and I'm going to toss you around. I'm going to ragdoll you. I'm going to make you feel like you are a little leaguer. And it was absolutely gorgeous. And the maddening thing about that from Star Lotulelei is that if you could do it to Khalil, you could do it to literally anybody. And he didn't do it every week, so it made me kind of mad. Anyway.
I've got a nomination, same game as the Dalton Kincaid 16 for 16, which I'm going to say is probably more impressive than this one, but I think this one needs to be considered in this too, is Cam Rising's game.
Yeah.
In the USC game.
5 touchdowns, right?
5 total touchdowns, 415 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground, 2 through the air, no picks. He was 30 for 44. That's a really good completion percentage for that many throws, 44 throws, and the game-winning 2-point conversion with under a minute left. Oh. And we learned that the beginning of his knee problem started with that game. He had I don't remember exactly what the injury was, but it was he had to miss the Washington State game the week after because his knee was starting to hurt a little bit after that game.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The 2-point conversion, he was stopped in the backfield, right? He got hit in the backfield and kind of wiggled his way in.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Considering the fact that he was dueling the Heisman Trophy at the peak of his season in Caleb Williams, and they were down 14 at 2 different times in this game. Caleb Williams was incredible in that game, and Cam Rising was just better.
And this being pointed out by alternate dynasties on Twitter, I think this is correct. That game was they tied that game, right?
I don't remember for sure, but probably.
Was that the game where the families were there?
Could have been. Could have been.
Was that the beginning of the new tradition, which is one of the best in all of college football? Well, in any case.
Anyway, it was the 22 season where they kind of dedicated the whole season to them after the season after they had both passed. But they because of the number 22, they dedicated that 22 season to him. So I'm sure it could, if it wasn't that game, it was one of the games that season for sure. But yeah, it was. I mean, that USC game is up there with one of the one of the greatest Utah football games ever, certainly regular season. And Cam Rising's performance, I mean, I know I said I think Dalton Kincaid's was probably better, but now that we're talking about it, I don't know which one was better, to be honest with you. I mean, going 16 for 16, not dropping a pass that's absolutely perfect, obviously.
Well, and by the way, nobody else in the passing game was a threat.
Right.
It was just like USC knew the ball was going to Dalton Kincaid, and he was like, and? You're not going to stop me?
So 234 yards, by the way, for him, too.
That was unbelievable.
Just the one touchdown, but still getting a touchdown with it, too. Next best receiver, yardage-wise and catch-wise, is Devon Bailey, 5 catches for 62 yards. He also got a touchdown. So a decent game from Devon Bailey, too, but you're right. Like, everyone knew it was going to Dalton, and this was after Brant had already been lost for the season, too, so you know that if it's going to a tight end, it's going to Dalton, and to be able to do that, I mean, that's hard to beat, but Cam's that same night, I mean, it's got to be considered.
So there's 8 options, and we're talking about really modern era of Utah football. We're not going back even like we scratched it a little bit with Scott Mitchell and that performance. I mean, Eddie Johnson's performances. He was an unbelievable running back who said a lot of.
I mean, Alex Smith. Have been some great Alex. Not thinking of.
You know what's so funny is I think because of what Alex Smith became, like his individual performances, he had so many that were just like 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 100 yards rushing, 87 yards rushing, whatever it was, and a touchdown. We're just like, oh yeah, that's just what Alex was.
Just kind of took it for granted.
For anyone else, it's a career day, but it's Alex Smith, right? And it's that offense, and it's what that team really was. So yeah, I'm probably missing a bunch of individual Alex Smith performances. Good one coming in, a couple ones coming in on Twitter as well. I like them because of the obscurity or relative from Spencer Horton. Brett Ratliff, 2005 against BYU.
Ooh, the comeback.
240 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 112 yards rushing, and a rushing TD. 5 total touchdowns against your rival.
It was
pretty awesome.
The game was in Provo too, right? Or maybe it wasn't. Anyway, I remember that's the one they were down 17.
That game was in Provo, yes.
In the game, they were down 17 or something at halftime or early second half too. So he an improbable comeback against your rival. Yeah, that's a good one.
Reggie Dunn, 2012 against Cal. Not 1 but 2 100-yard touchdown returns. There are guys who go an entire career
without any,
even if they are a return specialist. He had 2 in a game. So another great pull on that. Yeah, some awesome individual performances by Utes. And, of course, the question is inspired by what we saw from Shohei Ohtani in last night's game against the Marlins and, of course, all season long from Shohei Ohtani, who also can pitch.
And he hasn't thrown a pitch this year because of the Tommy John surgery.
This Shohei Ohtani is like if Travis Hunter was also one of the best quarterbacks in college football.
I was going to say that earlier when you were comparing Travis Hunter to him. I'm like, yeah, Travis Hunter does it all too, except play quarterback.
It's like Shohei Ohtani is Travis Hunter if Travis Hunter was also a quarterback.
You know the Friday Night Lights movie? And he can pass.
Nobody has any obscure references from the Friday Night Lights movie. Everyone's references, James, come from the television
I know.
show.
The movie's great, though. If you haven't seen the movie.
Tim McGraw is one of the coaches in that movie?
He's not a coach. He's a parent.
Oh, he's a parent.
It's
Billy Bob Thornton.
Billy Bob Thornton is the coach. He's the Coach Taylor of it. It's a different name, but yeah.
Friday Night Lights, the movie, is based on a true,
real story.
Actual real story.
Odessa Permian
versus Dallas Carter.
Yeah,
like one of the great kind of David versus Goliath stories in American sports. Like cool story. The movie, fine.
You didn't love the movie?
It's fine. It's like it's a good sports movie. It's not a great sports movie.
Okay, fair enough.
Now, the spin-off series that has
outstanding.
Very little to do with the actual true story.
It's like set 20 years later even.
Is a great series.
Yes. Clear eyes, full hearts.
Can't lose. Did we love that show because it was a great show or because it was at the beginning of the era of great shows? And because Lila Garrity was in it. Is that why we loved it?
I mean, Minka Kelly helps for sure.
That's Please, will you do me a favor? Will you cut that audio and make it a drop? Just you saying Minka Kelly helps is a great drop.
It's going to get me in trouble. No, it's fine.
No, it's
I'll
not.
cut that.
Your wife is probably a very reasonable human being. Okay?
Oh,
Keep
man.
the suggestions coming. Best individual performance you've seen by a Ute, 877-353-0700. As always, our opening segment on the Sean O'Connell Show is brought to you by Alvi Armani. If you're dealing with hair loss, hair retreating, that hairline retreating, it's thinning, gentlemen, ladies, they will take care of you no matter what. AlviArmani.com. Don't deal with the hair loss and the insecurity that comes with it anymore because you don't have to.
Did you realize that it's the same guy who plays the Buddy Garrity character in the movie and the TV show?
Is that true?
That's true. They don't say his name in the movie, but you see him and they do the scene in the TV show of them sitting at the diner table and talking strategy with Coach Taylor. They do that exact same thing with Billy Bob Thornton in the movie.
That's awesome. See, sometimes your obscure photographic memory on pop culture comes in handy. That's one of those times.
Most of the time, no. Is that what we're saying?
Most of the time. Like, here's the problem. Your cuts go so deep that, like, I don't know, maybe 5% of people understand what you're talking about. You pull out a quote from, like, Mac and Me, and it's just like, what? That most people haven't ever seen that movie, James. Anyway, we got to take a break here. The voice of the Utes, Bill Riley, is going to join me next. We'll talk about how hot and humid it is in Stillwater, but more importantly, keys to this game as Utah takes on a highly ranked, very dangerous Oklahoma State Cowboys squad. Bill Riley next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700. corporate America that you've defeated the man when you get a good cheap flight or you get a free upgrade? Fill in that blank for me. All right, we are joined on a Football Friday by the voice of the Utes, my friend Bill Riley. Bill, how are you?
Sean, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How is Stillwater, Oklahoma? How hot is it right now?
I'm not there. I'm still in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'll be in Stillwater, Oklahoma in about 3 hours.
All right. Well, that's a silly question on my part then. Let's focus in on, on the way that this game is going to play itself out. Look, on paper, Oklahoma State is very vulnerable defensively right now. So my question immediately goes to, well, how high-powered is Utah's offense going to be? And that often comes down to the Cam Rising question. We had Cam Rising on. He said he plans on playing. All indications are that he's going to play. Does the voice of the Utes have any special insight or expectation on Cam Rising's availability?
My expectation is kind of the same as everybody else's, Sean, though. Here's the one caveat. I think he's going to try to play and play. How does he play? He's got a finger. It's on his throwing hand. Guys have played with that before. I don't know that he's played with that before. How does that impact him? And we all know, too, that's an injury that can be re-aggravated very easily. You know, he hits it on a helmet. He falls on it when he takes a hit, whatever that might be. It's an injury you can't protect with a brace. You just can't do it. You can't wrap it up and hope that he plays because he's got to have those fingers free to be able to use. So how does he play? Does he have enough zip on the ball? Can he grip it well? Because you're right, they need him. I think Isaac Wilson gave us a great snapshot into the future of what Utah football is going to be down the line, and he's going to be a good one. I just think it's a big ask to ask an 18-year-old making his second career start, if he were to start or even to play, to go into Boone Pickens Stadium. The Utes need Cam Rising. Maybe they don't need him at 100%, Sean, but they need a really good Cam Rising tomorrow because I think you're going to have to score some points. I don't see this as a defensive battle tomorrow, because I think Oklahoma State's good. Alan Bowman can spin it. He's got some weapons. I know Ollie Gordon's gotten off to a slow start this year, but all it takes is one break or two to kind of get a running back jump started. So I think they need good Cam Rising, and I think they need to score some points at Boone Pickens tomorrow.
I put a poll question out. At what percent of fully healthy or ready does Cam Rising need to be in order for him to be the best option? And I'm with you. I think that even if he's playing, he's not 100%. So, is 90% Cam better than 100% Isaac Wilson? Is it 80% Cam? Is it 70% Cam? Because there's a lot that goes with it. Knowledge of the playbook, how a defense is going to play you, et cetera, et cetera. Can you put a number on it?
No, I don't think you can put a number on it, but I think you have. Here's what Cam Rising gives you that Isaac Wilson doesn't. He steps to the line of scrimmage, and he knows what a defense is lining up in. He's able to check the plays. He's able to get everybody in the right place. He's a guy that leads by example. It's, you hate to use the cliche term intangibles, but it's all the other stuff. And he knows where to put the football. Will he have the same zip that he would if his finger was 100%? Probably not. But is he going to be good enough? Because here's what I think is going to happen. I think Oklahoma State's going to come out and they're going to load the box up and they're going to say, we're not going to let you run the football. We want to see what Cam Rising can do on this first series if he can throw the ball down the field. I think they're just going to dare that. I think they're going to dare Utah with just that they're going to test Rising early. I think that would be the play for me to see what he's got, and then if he's got it, then you might be able to see lighter boxes. But I think that's the test early for Utah. Can they get off to a good start? Because it's going to be a raucous environment down there, and it's going to be hot as hell. It's going to be like 98 degrees. Plus the humidity. It's going to be like 110 on the turf down there in Stillwater tomorrow. But can you move the ball a little bit? Can you put some plays and put a drive or two together? Because if you can do that, then all of a sudden you're Utah football. And because he's got the weapons, we know that. He's got guys he can get the ball to, and it doesn't necessarily mean throwing the deep ball. If you can get quick game and get those quick hitting passes. But I think Oklahoma State might come out tomorrow, and I don't know this. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, and basically say, okay, Mekhi Bernard, Mike Mitchell, we're going to just show you 7 and 8 man fronts early on. Let's see what Cam's got, and then we'll see what we've got.
I agree with your premise. I think that is a very reasonable expectation. given what Oklahoma State has been and what their defense, the defensive identity that has morphed over the course of like the last season and a half. It's a really strange scenario, but they find ways to win because Mike Gundy's a good coach. So let's say that's the case, Bill. Let's say that you think they're like, all right, let's make these quarterbacks beat us with their arms. Let's make Cam Rising beat us with a bum throwing hand. You still have to run the football. And we've seen Mekhi Bernard go over 100 yards a game twice now. We've seen the offensive line get into a rhythm, although it took them way longer than most people wanted it to take them. So can they still run the ball successfully if that is what Oklahoma State decides to do? Is Oklahoma State good enough to stop Utah, or is Utah good enough, even in the case of Oklahoma State's commitment to stop that run? Who wins that battle?
Well, they didn't stop Jaquindon Jackson in the Arkansas game. He went for over 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, I don't know if they loaded the box up and said, we're going to take the run away, and they still ran it anyway. But they've been vulnerable to the run. You know, they've given up some points, too. They did it to South Dakota State. They did it certainly to Arkansas, not as much last week against Tulsa. I think the real interesting thing here is, you know, what does Cam look like throwing the football? Because, again, I think the expectation is he's going to play. And are they able to do that? Because if they're able to run their offense normally, I really like Utah's chances. Conversely, on the other side, John, Utah's secondary really has not been tested. Let's be fair. Even last week, they hit for a couple of hopeful balls. But Alan Bowman's a guy that can throw it, and Mike Gundy will throw it. And they've got some dudes on the outside. No, he's put up almost 1,000 yards in 3 games. So, to me, I think the Utah secondary has looked, for the most part, pretty good. But I think that's where the test is going to be. I think Utah's going to do its very best to stop the run and Ollie Gordon the way everybody else has done this year. So that might leave some matchups on the outside. It'd be interesting to see how Bowman throws early.
Voice of the Utes, Bill Riley, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking about the huge matchup coming tomorrow. Secondary has played admirably well, especially in light of a big injury early to Kenan Johnson. I've been most impressed, and I didn't have as high of expectations as maybe other people did for Van Fillinger's year. When he's healthy, he's really showing us like the ceiling, I think, of what he was or what his potential was as a highly rated recruit coming out of Corner Canyon High School. It's really cool to see him kind of getting his due, even from people like me, after battling through injuries a season ago. But Fano hasn't been as aggressive in the pass rush or as successful in the pass rush as I thought he would be. Lander Barton hasn't made any of those big havoc plays this season that we expect from him. No Karene Reed this week, I don't think. So, defensively, who needs to emerge in this game to make Alan Bowman and Ollie Gordon's life difficult?
Well, I think the guy you hit on is a guy that I because we've seen it from him in the first year and a half. I think it's Lander Barton, especially against a team that likes to run the ball. You might see if those guys up front do their job and eat up those blocks. Lander Barton, Jonnu Hall, Sione Fotu are going to have to be active in that linebacking core for Utah this week. So for me, you're right. Through 3 games, Lander's been solid, but we haven't seen him making any of those big tackles. We haven't seen him get in the backfield. Haven't seen him kind of drop in coverage and bat balls down. To me, if I'm Morgan Scalley, I would love to get a big game out of Lander Barton tomorrow. Because I think he's kind of going to be in the middle of it all, too. Because the other thing that Oklahoma State likes to do, they like to run a lot of shallows and crosses and get wide receivers, moving across the field. Bowman can throw it downfield, too. But, on those crosses and those shallows, that's where a linebacker that's reading the eye of the quarterback, and we've seen Lander Barton do it before, too. He's really good at dropping in coverage and getting in those passing lanes. I think he can have an impact on the game there tomorrow as well.
When we look at the interior play, we saw Keanu Tanuvasa step up, Junior Tafuna step up. They've got depth at that position. Again, assuming that Oklahoma State is going to try to get Ollie Gordon going and they have an experienced offensive line, how key are those D tackles for Utah in this game?
I think they're huge. I really do. And especially, you're going to have to count on your depth tomorrow, Sean. At 110 degrees on that field turf, you can't keep those defensive tackles in there for 3 and 4 and 5 plays in a row. And Utah always does a good job of rotating those guys too. They're really, really good, but you're going to have to use that depth. You're going to have to go to guys like, Tavita Fotu and Samote Pepa that are behind Keanu Tanavasa and Junior Tafuna. And you're going to have to get some depth on that. Logan Fano is going to have to step up, and Connor O'Toole and Van Fillinger, and maybe you have to turn to some of those youngsters like Paul Fitzgerald, the Utah State transfer, to give you a few reps as well, because it's going to be hot and it's going to be humid. And I know Utah's done a good job this week hydrating and getting ready for the game, but when you step on that field, it's going to be like it was at Baylor a year ago, and everybody still talks about how hot and humid it was at Baylor. It's going to be the same thing tomorrow in Stillwater.
Bill Riley for another minute or two here on the Sean O'Connell Show. He's the voice of the Utes, as you well know. All right, so I put a question out today inspired by the unbelievable night Shohei Ohtani had last night. Not only did he reach 50 and 50, but one of the great individual in-game performances we have seen. His stat line was something out of a video game. So I put the question out, what's the best individual game that people have seen from a Ute football player? Because we're in Utah football season, obviously. You called a lot of these games, Bill, so you have a different perspective even than most folks do. Is there one or two in particular that you're like, that might be the best game I've ever seen from one player?
Eric Weddle had back-to-back pick sixes against San Diego State back in 2006.
Yes.
Literally on back-to-back plays. And if I'm not mistaken, he may have run a touchdown in as kind of that wildcat back that day too.
Also correct, yes.
That was a pretty good performance by Weddle that day. I'm trying to think of some others that stand out. I'll be honest, the Dalton Kincaid, 16 for 16 against USC. I mean, come on. How ridiculous was that day? Against again, USC's defense wasn't great, but it's hard to go for 16 for 16 if you're just going against air. So that was a recent great performance. Trying to think.
Well, that Weddle game was my pick, and a lot of people came in with the Dalton Kincaid performance, and then several other people said, well, Cam's game in that game was just as good, if not better, because he had 5 total touchdowns. He had no turnovers. Obviously, he's the one who was delivering the ball to Dalton Kincaid.
I'll give you another one. Joe Williams at the Rose Bowl against UCLA. I think Joe's still running.
Post-retirement, yeah.
Yeah, he came out of retirement. It is still to this day, Sean, the most rushing yards in that stadium in any game ever. Think about the number of running backs playing in the Pac-10, Pac-12, Pac-8, and in Rose Bowl games themselves. And nobody has ever rushed for more yards than Joe Williams ran for that day against UCLA.
Absolutely outrageous. I knew you'd have some good pulls, and we got some great ones on the text line as well. Brett Ratliff against BYU back in 2005, 5-touchdown game, and Nate Orchard's 4-sack game against the top 10 UCLA team.
How about Travis Latondras in the bowl game? Did he have 4 touchdowns in that one bowl game?
That's right. And he had 4 touchdowns while Weddle on the other side held Megatron to 10 total yards, I think. Travis Latondras in, what was that, the Emerald Bowl. Yeah, Travis Latondras went off for 4 touchdowns and 200-plus yards.
And it's not quite as big, but when the Wolfman ran for like 180 yards and 3 touchdowns on BYU down in Provo.
John White IV. Juan Blanco El Cuatro. That's another good pull. That's the first. No one's brought that one up yet, Bill. That's a really, really good one.
I just remember he had a huge game against the Cougars down there, and he had like a 40 or 50-yard touchdown run to kind of cap it.
Pretty awesome. Wow. Yeah. Some great individual games. Hopefully we get another great individual performance from somebody in this Oklahoma State game in Stillwater. And that, of course, you can hear right here. 10 hours plus of coverage on ESPN 700 with Bill, Scott Mitchell, Sly, Porter Larson, and Isaac are going to be doing the pregame show. Lots of great stuff. What's going on with Advanced Window Products right now, Bill? I know that there's a special partnership going on.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, whether there's a special partnership or anything else, these people are phenomenal. They took great care of my home with blinds and window treatments and great plantation shutters. I had good windows in my house, but, I wanted to kind of cap it off. They took care of that. But here's the deal. You've gone all summer long. If your energy bills have been super high, you might have leaky windows. If you're in an older home, if you live up in the Avenues or Sugar House, you might have an older home, and the windows haven't been changed out in a while. You should call Advanced Window Products because you can save over the course of a year hundreds and maybe thousands of dollars on energy bills with the AC in the summer and the heat in the winter by getting new windows. And the best part of it is it's a local company. And everybody knows how I feel about things. If you can support local, buy local, eat local, drink local, support local businesses, that's the way to go. And this is a local business that's been in business for 36 years. They're not farming the business out to another country or out of state. They build and make everything in Advanced Window Products in the state of Utah. So from the time they come out and measure your house for the windows to the time they're coming out to install them, it's usually 7 or 8 weeks. And they're right here in your backyard, and they back it up with a lifetime guarantee warranty, too. They're great people. Nate, you mentioned just a minute ago, Nate Orchard, former mayor of Sac Lake City, Mayor Emeritus, Jake Weber, Dave Orchard, that entire crew at Advanced Window Products are awesome. So it's not something you buy every day, but if you've been thinking about it or think your house just needs it, you can give them a call. Stop out and see them. I think they've got a fall special going on right now, 10 windows or more. You save $2,500. They're just good folks. And, again, support them because they support us, and they'll do a good job for you. It's Advanced Window Products.
Bill, have a great call.
Sean, thanks. I'll see you soon.
That's Bill Riley, voice of the Utes. You can hear him right here tomorrow, Utah versus Oklahoma State. Number 12 in the country versus number 14 in the country. The line has continued to move all over the place. I'll give you the latest and the greatest on what the betting line looks like today. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700. Time for the Hot Lunch on the Sean O'Connell Show. Hot Lunch brought to you by Jersey Mike's. Every sandwich fresh sliced right in front of you. Cheesesteaks made to order directly on the grill. Stop in for lunch today. Jersey Mike's, a sub above. We got some feedback on the YouTube channel. By the way, if you're not already watching us on YouTube, go like, subscribe, and you can also leave comments alongside whichever of James's family members are weighing in and saying, James, I like your obscure movie references. Is that a family member or a friend that you have paid to provide the positive feedback?
Hey, I can say, at least by the screen name there, the YouTube handle that he or she has, I don't recognize it. The Indefiant LLC says, I understand the deep cuts, James. Appreciate you. Now, I may have misrepresented him a little bit, he or she a little bit, because I said they like them. They just said they understand.
Yeah,
so maybe they don't like them, but they do understand, so I still appreciate it.
That's kind of like it is your birthday.
Yeah.
You know? It's like not happy. It's just acknowledging that, yes.
It's a statement of fact, OC.
Yes.
It's a statement of fact.
All right.
Sly, he did say, or they said, I don't want to assume this person's gender here. Sly had a decent performance in the Sugar Bowl.
Okay, yeah.
And
as did Rojo, you pointed out.
And then they said Joe Williams at UCLA, though, is probably the best. Rojo, I pointed out after looking up the Sly's stats. Sly, yeah, he did have a really good game. 5 solo tackles, 7 total, a big fumble recovery. Rojo only had the 3 tackles, but he had 2 picks against Alabama in the Sugar Bowl.
Significant.
I mean,
significant.
Those are pretty good ones. I don't think they stand up to the rest that we've thrown out for the greatest games ever, but in a game like that, those are some good performances.
I like it. All right. For the Hot Lunch, wanted to take another look at this betting line for Utah versus Oklahoma State that has been swinging back and forth. It's been all over the place. The over-under total has stayed right in the same range. It's 54 as of right now. And this game still is viewed as a pick'em in most of these books. I'm looking at DraftKings. Now Utah, a 1-point favorite on the road, which means people think, at least for now, you're 4 points better than Oklahoma State because of the home field advantage. Alonzo sent me a picture of the sideline, by the way, at Boone Pickens Stadium. It is the space between the stands and the actual chalk, like the sideline itself, James, is as wide as this room that I'm sitting in.
It's like a really small foul territory in baseball. It's like
tiny.
It's like the foul territory next to the pesky pole at Fenway or something crazy like that.
It's a tiny sideline. I mean, there's a couple big sky stadiums that are like this, like both Montana and Montana State. Montana especially.
I feel like Wyoming is watching
narrow.
the BYU game on Saturday. I was like, yeah, Wyoming's got some small sidelines too.
There's definitely places where you feel like the fans are right on top of you. I mean, Rice Eccles doesn't have like a huge broad sideline, but this is 1/8 as wide as Rice Eccles. This is tiny.
Like you're saying, it's rare in a power conference to see something like that.
Like if somebody
and pretty cool.
If somebody at Boone Pickens Stadium passes gas, you're going to be able to smell it on the sideline.
If Pistol Pete passes gas.
If you're a player, you're not sneaking any, like, you know how sometimes you can go into the medical tent to pee or whatever? Can't do it at this stadium. They are right there. They'll be able to hear you.
Just do what Ross Tucker, the regular guest on the DP show, said he did in games. Just sit on a towel.
Gross. There was an NFL guy who used to do it on purpose. He would wet himself on purpose just to be gross. An offensive lineman just to gross out the D lineman.
Yeah, like, you don't want to touch me.
It's like gross.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. What a barbaric thing to do. All right, before we take a break here, the fill in the blank Friday. It's the best feeling for you when you get a deal on what? Like, free food is hard to beat, James.
Yeah.
I say that it's flights, like getting an upgrade on a flight or finding like that, we got a ticket to Hawaii for $179 or something like that. It just blows your mind and you feel like you have a victory over the world. What's the best one for you?
I might need some more time to think about this, but the first thing that comes to mind is food.
Free food. You can't beat free food.
One of the greatest perks about our industry, by the way, is the amount of free food. the pay could be much better, but they make up for it for the amount of food you don't have to buy.
Let me tell you that I don't know why I ended up this way. I have like a sort of almost like depression era mentality when it comes to food. I have a hard time leaving food on a table. And when I get to go call fights, right, the fights are catered for like the crew. And also because we are quote unquote talent, they will order us food for like takeout if we want. They won't make us eat the catering because they assume that we're divas, which I guess we probably are. So I've had to, because I'm 41 years old now, I've had to stop myself from just being like, well, why not both? And I will go eat the catering and then be like, also order me this delightful, salmon or ribs or whatever from the restaurant you're getting everyone else food from. And then I'm just gorging myself.
Yeah.
And you can't do that anymore when you get to a certain age, unless you're, I don't know, a triathlete, which I'm not. So it's been a real problem, James. Yes, it's a perk of our job, but I get so much free food and I have such a hard time leaving any of it behind that you get a little chubby.
I do that at games. I eat the meal, and then I go, and then later they put the dessert out, and I'm like, well, I got to try some of this. When in reality, I should not try any of it.
Like, well,
I already had a whole meal.
It's rude
like,
I got to.
I got to try whatever cookies they have out here.
Somebody baked those lemon bars. I have to try them. Yeah.
Or Jazz games, they do them. They do the pregame meal, and then at halftime they do like hot dogs and nachos.
Dude, Jazz food is good.
Yeah, and they also have the dessert plate, and I'm like, I've had to stop myself sometimes from going down at halftime.
Do they still have the soft serve ice cream machine?
They do not.
Oh my god.
They took that out like right before I started attending regularly, and so I hear Sarah Todd, I hear Ryan Miller, I hear Andy Larson, and Tony Jones gush about the ice cream machine all the time and how great it was, and I go, man, I missed it. I missed it.
They had toppings and everything.
Yeah,
They
took that out.
Okay.
The meals are still pretty good, but the dessert's not as good from what I hear because there's no soft serve ice cream.
Well, I've been to other NBA arenas, and you have to pay for your media food. You have to buy it.
Ooh, I have not been in that situation.
When I took that radio job in San Francisco, I was all excited. I got the season press pass to the Golden State Warriors, and they weren't yet a dynasty, but they were an exciting team.
Was it like, what, Steph's first year?
No, it was like Steph's third year. And it was Bogut, and they had –
okay, maybe their first playoff year with Mark Jackson, perhaps? Yeah.
It was a fun year,
yeah,
right?
It was.
It was not like –
they were the fun team in the league at that time, yeah.
But I remember going with my co-host, Matt Steinmetz, who's been a guest on this show, and Rick Bucher, who was on the same station as me at the time, going down, and meet him there and go down and they're like, we walk into this cramped media meal room. I was like, this sucks. It's not like this beautiful, spacious facility like I'm used to at the Delta Center. And they're like, yeah, it's like $13 for the meal. I was like, what?
Ooh.
What are you talking about? And Mark Spears actually was there, and I was talking, and he was laughing. He was just like, oh, yeah, you're from Utah. He's like, Utah's like literally one of two arenas where they take care of the media. I was like, what? This is an outrage. Anyway, so yes, we get a lot of free food. It can become a problem, but fill in the blank Friday. When you get
I'm gonna keep thinking on it to see if I can think of other things.
When you get a great deal on blank, it's an ultimate victory. Free golf coming in on the text line at 877-353-0700. And gas, if you get a good deal on gas.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Someone came in on Twitter with that one as well. When you get free fuel or like a coupon for gas or whatever, or you'd go to
almost anything travel, right? Your flights,
yes,
a good deal on flights, really good deal on gas or free gas, free flights. Yeah, but anything travel is a good pull there.
All right, let's check in on the Utes. Alex Markham from Rivals joins us next. Sean O'Connell Show, Hour 2 coming on ESPN 700. We have a jam-packed hour number 2 for you here on a Friday. Alex Markham right now. Dale Murphy coming in 20 minutes. Lee Sterling at 12:45 to give you your picks for the week from Paramount Sports. That means, James, I got to stay on clock. You got to help me stay on clock here. All right. Alex Markham from Rivals. Welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
What's going on, man? How are you?
Doing all right. Glad to be talking to you. I want to get into the Utah versus Oklahoma State game here in just a second, but I want to start with some recruiting news that we got this week, and it was not good news for Utah fans. Jerome Miles, Corner Canyon, all-everything wide receiver, announced his commitment. He pulled the okey doke. He reached for the Utah hat, and then he put on the USC hat. He's expected to be a Trojan, although the recruiting process continues all the way up until signing day. So we'll see what happens. And then beyond that, you've got the transfer portal. Your thoughts on Jerome Miles heading to USC and what this means for Utah in the wide receiver room with their future classes?
Dude, I mean, it's nuts, man. Because I mean, when I was talking to you about it last time, I mean, you know, it seemed all good for Utah, but I had even said like, hey, like, look, it's not over with him until everything is signed, right? Because he changed his mind already, you know, in the process, you know, more than people can even realize because of the ones that were actually silent or the ones that were actually public, you know. And so it was a big blow. I mean, you know, you look at USC's tradition at receiver, it's not a surprise, but at the same time too, it's an extremely stacked room. You know, and it's funny that you mentioned like transfer portal, right? Because I mean, one, it's not over until it's over. You know, he's going through his injury, which it's worse than the initial that they had thought like the first few days into it. So, you know, you never know what's going to happen with USC if they, you know, feel like they got something better, decide to back off a little bit, and you know, opens the door for Utah and everybody else. But when he was committed to Ole Miss, you know, I was just kind of sitting back in private conversations with everybody saying like, look, like, you know, I get that maybe he's entertaining Utah right now, but ideally I see him, you know, going to Ole Miss, going somewhere else, obviously USC in the situation, and ultimately ending up back at Utah in the transfer portal, you know. And I still kind of see that because, I mean, this is where his big support system is. This is his home. I know, you know, the connections that he has there. So, you know, it'll be interesting just to see what happens when everything just kind of settles down. You know, aside from that, you know, Utah's got Tavian McNair in this class. He's a talented wide receiver. So that's one guy that still is somebody for you fans to be really excited about. I mean, if you go and watch some of his highlights, he's made some ridiculous catches. So would have been nice having both of those guys for Isaac to throw to in the near future. But you know, again, with Jerome, like we said, it's not over until it's over, and it's been an interesting process.
There's also now the financial aspect here with these. Like, I made the case yesterday. I said, look, first of all, don't get upset over what 17-year-old kids are doing with their decision-making. It's just not good for your health. Yeah. It's not good for your life. You know, just like let them do their thing. The transfer portal, everything works out in the end. Also now, teams like USC, programs like USC, are going to invest more in their recruiting picture than Utah does. That's never going to change. They have more money. Oregon's got more money. Alabama's got more money. Ohio State's got more money. And that does matter. Should it be the only thing that a family or a recruit considers? No. But is it something that matters in life? Absolutely. So for Utah to get a 4 or 5 star wide receiver of all positions, how much is it going to cost them?
Oh boy. I mean, you're probably looking at anywhere from 650,000 on up to $1 million. It gets pricey. It gets really pricey. You know, I mean, you look at it even just outside the wide receiver standpoint and everything. And you know, I know Quinton Ganther at one point was talking about how difficult it is to be able to get in the transfer portal. You know, bruising every down back that can do it all. Like they're a premium, you know. And so, I mean, just imagine just with the hype of a high school wide receiver being a 4 or 5 star kid, being a top 100 kid, right? And coming out that way, it's nuts to me that those guys can make that level of money and not have proven themselves on the college level yet. Because the amount of guys that you see going to college as 5-star kids or high 4-star kids that end up being busts. And I'm not saying at all that that's what Jerome's going to be. Jerome is a talent, right? It's insane what those guys are able to get from an NIL standpoint. I can't wrap my mind around it.
It really is insane because, again, like rewind to when you were 17 years old, when you were 18 years old, and then drop a $500,000 plus bomb on that situation. I cannot even begin to fathom how my ego would change, how my behavior would change, how my relationship with my parents would change. I mean, it would affect everything in your life.
Oh, big time. Big time, yeah.
Crazy. Anyway, Alex Markham from Rivals is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Let's turn our focus now to Utah versus Oklahoma State. There are questions in this game. A lot of them revolve around whether or not Cam Rising is going to play, and if he does play, which we expect that he will, how close to 100% that he is. I put the poll question out there at Real OC Sports for any of you who haven't voted on it yet. For you, Alex Markham, what percentage of health does Cam Rising need to be at in order for it to be the right move to play him instead of Isaac Wilson? Is 70% Cam Rising better than 100% Isaac Wilson? Is it 80%? Is it 90%? Where do you sit?
I mean, it's tough to put a percentage on it, right? Because it's like, I mean, he's healthy. It's a gash on his finger, So it's, how well can he grip the football? Is it gonna slide out? Just over the most simplest movement and stuff like that. So, I mean, I'd say a 75-80% Cam. You still throw him in. You still throw him in over Isaac. And look, Isaac had an awesome game last week. After about a quarter and a half, right? But I know that there were some of those weird rumors at the start of this week with Cam, especially when the betting line started swinging again. Started looking into it. I'm not hearing any red flags, so I still fully expect Cam to be able to play. And really, everything that it sounds like to me last week was just one of those precautions where it was like, look, he could go if they wanted him to, but it was a perfect opportunity for Isaac.
And Isaac made good on that opportunity, especially in that second half. Really strong performance from him. Never want to take that away from a young freshman because it's not easy to do. I think we always we gloss over, because of, his talent coming out of high school, we gloss over how big the leap is, how big the jump is to be not only a freshman playing at the Power 5 level or the Power 4 level, I have to call it now, but also getting a start. It's a totally different animal when you're coming in, your team's got a 35-point lead versus when it's 0-0 and you're walking out there with the ones.
And look, I had been telling everybody, because there were plenty that were a little worried the first two games, but it's like, look, it's going to click, and when it clicks, he's going to be a stud, And you saw in that game even just like the evolution, right, where he starts off and, they changed up the play calling a little bit at one point, let him move around the pocket a little bit more freely, right? But, his passes at first, I mean, just like I still remember back to the Adam Schultz days where had Adam learned how to throw, and if Adam's listening to this, he'd kill me, right? But had Adam learned how to throw with more than one speed, he would have probably given Travis Wilson a run for his money. Adam was a great quarterback, but he knew one speed. And that's what you were kind of seeing from Isaac for a minute there. Just throwing bulleted passes. I mean, you think back to the Will route that he had Stanley on and threw the bullet. And I mean, could Stanley have caught it? Yeah, but that's not how you throw those passes in those situations, right? There was one to Keithy, one to there and a few others. As soon as he started putting that touch on the ball, oh my God, some of the dimes that he was dropping, it was like, okay, he's figured it out. This kid, when he's got his full on opportunity, he has a chance to be special. You could really see it in that game, especially the last 2.5 quarters.
What's your biggest concern for Utah against Oklahoma State?
I know Oklahoma State's defense is atrocious, but they do have a pretty good red zone defense, if I remember correctly. same time too, I think you and me were kind of interacting with this a little bit on Twitter, but I had made a comment about one of my concerns with Utah's offense is their goal line. The offensive line at the goal line, because the amount of times that Mitchell and Bernard were getting hit, 2-3 yards in the backfield without even being able to make a move that's not good, and so that's going to continue to be a concern for me until Utah, with the offensive line and their run blocking, until Utah proves it against a good team.
So we've waited for 3 games now for the wide receiver position to really take off at the University of Utah. We talked all offseason about how this is the most talented room we can remember. You've got these transfers, Dorian Singer, kind of the primary name there, plus guys like Money Parks who've been on this roster and have, I think, a really high ceiling. And Money's gotten a little bit involved, and last week we saw some flashes from Dorian Singer. Damian Alford still hasn't been a part of the offense. Mm-hmm. You mentioned how bad Oklahoma State's defense has been. They're worst in the conference against the pass. They have young secondary. Is this the week, Alex? I've asked everybody this. Is this the week that the wide receivers take their place in this offense and emerge?
I think they can. I mean, it always just depends on Ludwig, and like if he hits a point where he just wants to go conservative and run heavy, right? But I think that when you see Cam in for a full game, I think that you're going to see him really kind of put the foot on the pedal, give them a lot of freedom and just pile up those points. So if they have the opportunity, I honestly feel good about the passing game this week, especially if Cam can get in a groove early. You definitely want to do something with emphasizing that the first and second series just to really get into that groove. Because, I mean, hell, Cam's only played, a total of 4 quarters? Just
not even 4 full quarters yet, yeah.
Right. This entire year. And, for a lot of quarterbacks, you'd be concerned about that. I'm not concerned about that with Cam. I mean, the offense flows so smooth with him, and just the little snippets we've been able to see with when they've opened it up with him and the wide receivers, it's been entertaining to watch. So I do think that this is the one week that they could really open the floodgates with the passing game.
Score prediction from you. How does it play out in Stillwater?
Ooh, that's a tough one. That's so tough, right? Because, I mean, you got Ole Gordon, supposed to be the best running back in the country with Oklahoma State, Doak Walker winner, and he's gotten off to a rough start. And you look at what the Utah State running back did against Utah last week. Gordon's due for a breakout, so what's going to happen there? And is it going to be something where it's a close game? And I mean, you got 2 veteran quarterbacks, right? So there's probably not going to be a lot of mistakes in the game. But because of how bad Oklahoma State's defense is, and I do see Utah winning a little bit more than a close game. I want to say let's go 30 Utah 38, Oklahoma State 27.
All right. Double-digit win for Utah, according to Alex Markham. Stamp it. Put it in the book. That's his prediction. Thanks for your time, as always, my friend.
Appreciate you guys. Take care.
Alex Markham from Rivals, Utah Insider. Like all Utah Insiders, Alex, brought to you by Metro Elevator. So if you live or work in a building with an elevator that does not seem to cooperate, tell your property manager to call Metro Elevator, Utah's preferred vertical transportation experts. 801-946-7003. That's 801-946-7003. I put the poll question out yesterday. Hey, do you think this is going to be a slugfest? Is this going to be a high-scoring shootout? What's it actually going to look like? And Alex, his answer comes in, I guess, under the third option that I put out there. He thinks it's going to be a pretty comfortable Utah win. Utah wins not easily, but double digits, that's a comfortable win. Count him among the 20-ish% of people who voted that way. High-scoring shootout won the poll, by the way, James. 44% of people think that one's going to be a high-scoring shootout.
I think that's where I went, too. but we'll see how it goes. I could certainly be convinced that it's a low-scoring slugfest too. I don't see it being a blowout either way.
Just to update you on the other poll we put out there, 65% of people would rather have Frank from American Pickers be a fan than Coach Prime.
Bananas. But,
so,
I mean, it's understandable with all the Colorado hate right now for sure. And just how great American Pickers is, apparently. Apparently I'm missing out.
Yeah,
I've only seen an episode or two.
You really need to watch it. I got excited. Another thing that came across social media yesterday, Utah Hockey Club in camp, right? They begin their 3-day training camp yesterday, and they've got their first preseason game on Sunday. We saw the first look at a goalie mask. Did you see this thing?
I did not.
You know, they get to do the custom paint jobs.
Yeah.
They're beautiful. I really believe this. In sports, like the last frontier of great art in sports is these goalie masks. They're absolutely incredible. We need to see a hand-painted edition of a Utah football helmet like this, but everyone gets to pick their own motif. That's what hockey goalies do. They all decide what their paint is going to be, and one of Utah Hockey Club's goalies does Cars theme, like the Pixar movie Cars. So he's got this Utah Hockey Club color with Mater and all these other characters from the Cars movies. And look, is that my favorite motif I've seen on one of these things? No. Am I excited about when you actually have the club name and it's like some cool artist rendering of a Yeti? That's going to be incredible, but it kind of gets you excited when you see the official paint job.
I just saw the hockey mask. That is incredible.
What would you put on yours?
I'd probably. What would I put on mine? Man, you're giving me stumpers. I need more time to think about these things.
The problem is that you actually think about your responses
I know.
to questions.
I try to be honest,
everyone else in this business just like pulls something out of their you-know-where. And you're like a thoughtful, conscientious answerer of questions. That's your fault, James.
I know it is. I need to get with it and just start winging things.
Yes. I'm going dinosaur theme because I love dinosaurs.
Yeah, I'd go with the T-Rex. The Jurassic Park logo. There it is.
I'm going dinosaur theme, or all of my tattoos are stained glass theme. I love stained glass.
Stained glass is great too.
I would love to see like someone.
Stained glass Jurassic Park logo.
I would do that. Maybe we can get someone. We can get a hockey mask blank, and we can get one of these cool artists to paint us up something for the studio. We'll put it on our YouTube channel, which you should be following, liking, subscribing, etc. All right, Shohei Ohtani had an all-time performance last night to cap off an all-time run toward 50-50, the first player in baseball history to hit 50 home runs and steal 50 bases in the same season. Dale Murphy's going to swing by in 3 minutes to really put it into context. What does this accomplishment mean for baseball and for Shohei Ohtani? Dale Murphy next on the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700. All right, Lee Sterling swings by in about 15 minutes to give us his picks for the week. A wild, wild line on that Utah-Oklahoma State game as the favorite has swung back and forth, like 3 or 4 times? Lead changes all over the place. You don't see that. Maybe he's got some insight on it. But right now I want to talk a little baseball coming off of Shohei Ohtani's huge night. And, of course, when we're talking baseball in the state of Utah, nobody better than Dale Murphy, 2-time MVP, sports super dad. You can say anything you want about the man. We're lucky to have him on the show. Dale, welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show for the first time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, hear you great. Sound good?
Okay, good. And congrats on the show. I, longtime listener to Bill, and so happy to have you on. Nice going, and thanks for having me on.
All right, well, appreciate you saying that, and appreciate you taking some time with us. I want to talk about this epic performance from Shohei Ohtani. Let's just start with the game itself. He goes 6 for 6 at the plate, 3 home runs, 10 runs batted in, 17 bases. I mean, this is an all-time performance just in one individual game, even if you leave it out of the context of what he accomplished in the season last night with the milestone that he reached. What do you think of that one-game performance against the Marlins?
Well, it's kind of describes Shohei Ohtani, in one game. Just think what he could be doing if he was pitching. I mean, he'd probably be going for a Cy Young too. So the guy is just like nobody we've ever seen. I think we've seen guys that showed possibility. Maybe they had the talent to do it, but stealing 50, hitting 50, and do it in the dramatic fashion he does. I mean, not only that, but I think we also got to remember that he is probably going to be pitching next year. And how do you describe someone that is doing things that have never been done? Hitting 50, has been done. Stealing 50 has been done. Obviously, it hasn't been done combined by one player. But the other thing is to think about that, someday he's going to be pitching, throws 100 miles an hour. And he's batting leadoff. I mean, it's crazy. I don't know how to say it except the guy is just an unbelievable player and best player in the game. If anybody gets a chance to go see him in person, go see him.
What was the best individual game you had at the plate, or maybe overall in the field too?
Whoa, man! I got 5 hits in a game, I think, and then I hit 2 home runs in an inning once. But I hit 3 home runs in a game once. This guy's kind of able to do this night in and night out. That's the crazy thing. He plays hard. I think guys maybe with his speed and his ability might hold back a little bit. Long season, save yourself for the playoffs. Not that you're not trying, but you want to be smart about it. But 50 stolen bases attempts is so many, or more attempts than that. Sliding into second, if he goes head first, I think he goes feet first, which is a lot safer. The guy just plays hard, and I think that's what I appreciate. He's not a one-dimensional guy. If he gets on base, he's looking for a stolen base. I mean, that's a fun part of the game, and it's great to just see him go for it every night.
One of the interesting things about being one of these super elite stars in any sport now is there's this calculus done about all right, how much do you rest? How much do you protect yourself? We see it more. Load management is more of a topic, I think, in the NBA than any other sport. But because you mentioned, he can pitch as well. And to ask him to hit as well as he does and run the bases as well as he does, while he's also a valuable pitcher for your franchise, it's a great problem for the Dodgers to have. I saw some baseball folks saying, no, don't even pitch again. Just become the best hitter in baseball history if this is what you're capable of. If Shohei Ohtani calls you and it's just like, Dale, how should I move forward in my career? What are you telling him? Focus on being the best all-around player you can be. Focus on your hitting. Let's see what ceiling you can reach in the pitching world. How would you advise him?
Well, I just say keep doing what you're doing. I don't think he got surgery so he could just come back and DH or play the outfield once in a while. I would not hold back from him pitching. He's an elite pitcher. I want him in my starting rotation. Maybe we got to see how this surgery goes. You're never sure. I've heard good things. I heard rumors he might even. I think a doctor said no, but I think he said, don't count me out for the playoffs. I think it's awesome that he wants to pitch. If he wants to, which if I'm the Dodgers, I want him to. I want him out there on the mound. Maybe you do have to watch that workload and stuff. But baseball is not a game where, it's so much of the workload on physically as it is mentally. He's able to kind of relax a little bit when you're DHing. Pitching is totally different game mentally. And so, he's probably going to need some days off if he's doing both. But I want him out there on the mound. I mean, this guy's dynamic as a pitcher. And especially as banged up as the Dodgers pitching seems to be. But, I want him out there. I mean, I'll tell you another thing. I think of John Smoltz, who has, I think, 200 wins and 200 saves, only guy in the history of the game to do that, Hall of Famer. But the mental adjustment from being a pitcher and, a starting pitcher and a reliever and a closer, that's a different game. Just the fact that he sometimes shows up and is a pitcher and has to go through all the scouting reports and has to know the hitters. And it's an amazing physical feat. But I think, to me, his ability to concentrate and to spend mental energy when he's pitching is remarkable as well.
Dale Murphy's our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking about the remarkable Shohei Ohtani. And I wanted to, it's a historic season for him with reaching that 50-50 milestone. Last night was an all-time individual game. They clinch a playoff spot, and celebratory, sure, but Dave Roberts and company said, hey, we have higher hopes than just clinching a playoff spot. We want to win a World Series. How likely is it that the Dodgers, all in this same year, they can have Shohei make history and they can also win a World Series?
Yeah, baseball's weird. The Braves won their division 14 years in a row after I was retired and won one World Series, went to, I can't remember now, 3 or 4. But it's just a strange game. Tonight, I think the Dodgers scored 20 runs. They could face somebody tonight, could hold them to 2 or 3 hits. I mean, it's just a game that takes a long time to see who the best team is. And then you get into the playoffs, and it's kind of who's hot. And some people like that. Some people don't. But I think it's what makes the game fascinating. I think, obviously, they're going to be the favorites. Pardon me for being negative. Shohei's got one negative. He strikes out a lot. And what happens when you get into the playoffs is, they got a great lineup with Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, and everybody else. But he does strike out. And, that's something, we're going to see. He hasn't been in the playoffs yet. Pitching gets better. Scouting reports get better. They're going to pitch around him. I guess they pitched around him a couple times to pitch to Mookie Betts, and that didn't work out so well. He's got a great lineup protecting him. I'm just going to be interested. That's one of my critiques against Aaron Judge. I'm not critiquing guys that strike out. I struck out a lot. As long as you're producing runs and hitting home runs. But the point is guys that strike out a lot have issues sometimes in the playoffs. Reggie Jackson struck out a lot, and he had a game in the World Series against the Dodgers where he hit 3 home runs. The point is it's a different game. You get in the playoffs, just like a lot of sports, but baseball can be really weird. I'm not going to bet against them. I mean, I'm pulling for my Braves to get into the wild card, and it's tough with the Mets playing that well. But there's some good players out there, some good teams, and it's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be a great postseason. It's going to be a great last week and a half here. This is going to be a lot of fun.
So last homestand of Smith's Ballpark is happening right now. They finished things up there with the Bees on Sunday. I took my girls out to the park the other night, and I've been to dozens and hundreds of games at Smith's Ballpark, and it has served me well. It has served this community well. I wish the Bees were staying closer to downtown because I live in the Avenues, but they're headed off to daybreak, and so the page turns, and we say, all right, what about Big League Utah? What about Major League Baseball and the Power District? And what's the next hurdle to overcome to get another pro sports franchise here and to get Major League Baseball here in Salt Lake City? And obviously, you're heavily involved. You're instrumental in making these things happen. So what is the next hurdle that Utah and that Salt Lake City need to get over in order to make that happen in the near future?
Well, they're working every day. I think that's one thing people need to understand is this is not a situation where you it's like getting an Olympic bid. Everybody's been working on the Olympic bid every day since we got the 2034. So Steve Starks and his team are working every day, establishing relationships, and I'm thankful to be a part of it. I think we have the premier location, premier market, premier best in class ownership with Gail Miller at the head. I'm very optimistic now. Thing yet, and nothing's for sure, but I'm optimistic. I think we have Sean. I think we have all the pieces that if I were an owner. Let's say I'm an Atlanta Braves owner, Cincinnati Reds owner. If I look at this market and this ownership group, I say to myself, that's a solid market, a proven market. That's a solid ownership group, well-funded, and it's a proven ownership group in the world of professional sports. That's what you want to look at as an owner, because when you bring a team in, well, let's just put it this way, the value of franchises, just like any commodity, a bad franchise lowers the level of the value of your franchise. You want it to always be good. If you want to, talk about the A's, it's been very obvious. It's kind of been a mess. If I'm looking at what I potentially have in Salt Lake City with NBA, NHL, Major League Soccer, great college sports, great business-friendly, vibrant community. I'm gonna. You got to weigh your risks, right? To me, we don't have a lot of risks, I guess, is what I'm saying. If I'm an owner looking at who's proposed, I think we have a lot of positives. I want to say, again, we're working every day, whatever needs to be done. And we're just not sitting back, thankful to be a part of it, and excited, really excited.
Dale, thanks for your insight. Appreciate your time. Let's have you on again soon when we get into this baseball postseason. We'll talk a little ball, okay?
Absolutely. Thanks, Sean.
Dale Murphy, two-time MVP back in his Braves days, should be in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. Should be. Maybe someday we'll get him there. And by the way, he did have a 3-homer game, May 18th, 1979. Twice he homered off Vida Blue. So Vida Blue, one of the greatest pitchers of that day. You're not just out there schlepping it up against like some position player like that loser Shohei Ohtani did last night. Am I right, James? Anyone could hit it.
Seriously.
Anyone could have gone yard on that last one. All right. I mentioned it many, many times. The line has been all over the place with Utah. Right now, they're favorites over Oklahoma State. Maybe that changes by tomorrow. Lee Sterling's going to swing by in about 3 minutes, and we're going to get his perspective on this line and other games here this coming weekend, and a big weekend, a big slate for college football. Dale Murphy in the show today, brought to you by Canyon's Edge Sports Pub. Canyon's Edge Sports Pub in Holiday is the place to be to watch all the games. They got great food, great drinks, great atmosphere, and every down is going to be on one of the many big screens. So maybe, just maybe, since it's an away game, if you don't have tickets, if you're not headed to Stillwater, Canyon's Edge Sports Pub for your Utah versus Oklahoma State viewing experience. Lee Sterling with some picks next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700. Big college football weekend coming. Big in-state games. Kansas State is in Provo. Utah is in Stillwater. Lots to take a look at. How are we playing these games? Well, we've called the best in the business. Lee Sterling joins us on Fridays here on the Sean O'Connell Show to give us the right picks from Paramount Sports. Lee, how are you?
I'm good. I'm real good. Yeah, some interesting games. A lot of these games, these teams, if they played each other, I can't remember the last time. So should be fun.
Some big marquee matchups as well.
Yep.
We'll start with one, USC, who's, I'll admit, a hell of a lot better this year than I thought they'd be. They're 5-point favorites at the Big House with Michigan. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, I thought they were better, but also let's look at both of their wins. They beat Utah State with a backup quarterback, and now going back, maybe this LSU win wasn't as big as we thought because LSU gave up 33 points to South Carolina. So I have my doubts there. Also, Michigan made a change at quarterback. Davis Warren started the year. I didn't think he should have been the starter. I watched the spring game, thought Alex Orji much better, more upside, but they went with Davis Warren. After a 3-interception game, they made the change. They're going to go from Davis Warren, who was a no threat, to Alex Orji, who is a dual threat quarterback. And I think he's going to put some stress on this USC defense. And I think Michigan is going to show them what big boy football is all about. Wrong team favored. Michigan wins outright 24-20.
Yep. Starting with the upset. I love it, Lee. All right. Look, BYU, I think BYU's underrated this year. I think they have more weapons than people are giving them credit for. I don't think that this is necessarily the week that we see them overperform because Kansas State looks dangerous, and the Wildcats are 6-point favorites at LaVell Edwards Stadium. What do you have here?
Yeah, if the game was being played at Kansas State, I would think it would be very tough to win the game. But at home gives them a chance here. Kansas State coached very well. Excellent special teams. They block punts. They do the little things. Avery Johnson is so good as a quarterback. He ran Will Howard off to Ohio State. Their running back, DJ Giddens, might be a top 10 running back in the country. He's a beast, 324 yards in 3 games. And their defense held a potent Arizona offense in check last week, held them to 7 points here. BYU's defense looks good on paper, but they really haven't been tested at all. Faced Southern Illinois, nothing. Wyoming, this might be the worst Wyoming team in 45, 50 years. And SMU, whose quarterback, Stone, who is so bad, he's like a pitcher who has the yikes, and he can't even throw strikes. They can't even put him in anymore. I think Kansas State pulls away late, 32-20.
All right, I'm going to save Utah-Oklahoma State for last because that's an interesting one for obvious reasons here. A couple NFL picks. The Raiders are 7-point favorites against Carolina, and we know about the highly publicized quarterback change. Does it affect the outcome? Who do you pick here?
Yeah, I think it does. I think they're finally going to the Red Rifle, and Andy Dalton's going to make a change and help them. You know, when he played and started that one game last year at Seattle, he looked really good. When he's fresh, when he gets beaten up, not so good. But the Red Rifle last year's game put up 27 points, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions in that game, threw for almost 7 yards per pass attempt. And Vegas is one of these teams. They're better as an underdog, as a favorite. You know, I don't know where they play lackadaisical. They don't have, you know, except for their one great receiver, they don't have the targets. And I think Carolina's going to keep it close. I think this is a trap line. The line is 5. Remember this, Sean. A 5-point line as a favorite only covers 39% of the time. It's the least covering number of any number between 1 and 10. I'm going to say Las Vegas wins 24-20, but Carolina gets the first cover of the year.
All right, Panthers cover, according to Lee Sterling here on the Sean O'Connell Show. All right, Seahawks are favorites against Miami. The Tua Tagovailoa saga continues with the concussions and all that stuff. How do you have this one?
So Skylar Thompson has been in the system 3 years. He had such a good preseason and practices that they just said, Mike White, go away. We'll take off. We'll eat that $5 million salary. And I don't think long-term he's the answer, but maybe for a game or two, he presents some problems that are going to give teams problems. He has a bigger arm than Tua has. He's a better runner. And I think the team is going to finally rally around him. You know, they have just not performed the first 2 games, except for the last 7 or 8 minutes in that game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then against Buffalo, showed nothing. So a lot of times teams can rally for one game, and Seattle without Kenneth Walker III may not be the same here. I'm going to say the Dolphins pull off the shocker and win 27-20. I'm going to tell you, put half your wager on Miami plus 4.5 and half on the money line plus 180.
All right, Utah State, back to college football we go. Utah State hung tough for 3.5 quarters against the University of Utah. Eventually the Utes were able to get it done, pulled away, double-digit win for the Utes up in Logan. Utah State is favorites this week against Temple.
Yeah, that's going to be our game of the week. If they want to get that for free, all they need to do is call 800-400-9741. First 10 callers, we're going to give it to them for free, 800-400-9741. And just to let everyone know, if they've never been with me before, or if you were a client and, you know, for some reason busy and haven't signed up this year, normally you've got to be a monthly or season subscriber. You can come on board this weekend. We call it the Baker's Dozen. 13 games for $97. It's an instant download. And we've had some 12-1, 11-2, 10-3 records on this. 13 games, and I'm so sure I'm going to win, Sean. If I don't produce a winning record, if I don't go 7-6 or better, next week is on me. ParamountSports.com.
Before I let you go, Utah, Oklahoma State. This line has swung back and forth like a pendulum. It's a clock ticking. It's I don't know, where's it at right now? You got to keep it up by the minute here. But Utah was a favorite last time I looked.
Yeah, Utah State, was a 3-point underdog. Oklahoma State was a favorite to start off when it was announced that Cam Rising was probably going to play. It swung all the way now to 2 points. We're seeing some 1.5, 2.5, but we're going to play this game at Utah -2. Now, some people will say 5-point move. That's a lot. I think Cam Rising might be the most important player in college football to his team. Now, in the NFL, you'll see like Patrick Mahomes is worth, they say, 7 or 8 points. Tom Brady was worth 8 or 9 points. I think the difference when he plays to the backup might be 13 points here. I think Oklahoma State's defense can be had. They gave up 600 total yards to Arkansas. Ollie Gordon was really good last year, over 1,800 yards rushing. This year, last 2 games, just 90 yards on 34 carries here. I think the dam's going to break here for Oklahoma State. They finally lose at home here. We're going with Utah, 30-23.
I know all these Ute fans love to hear that, Lee. Great stuff as always. Appreciate your time. Talk again next week.
Sounds good, Sean. Take care.
That's Lee Sterling, Paramount Sports, 800-900-9741. Great stuff, as always, from Lee. By the way, played the quarterback position in college. He never shouts himself out for that, but he did. He's a high-level player. He knows the game. He watches film. He grinds tape like he's a coach. And that Baker's Dozen, great deal. Paramount Sports with Lee Sterling. Always good to hear from Lee on a Football Friday. Oh, you're going to love this coming next. We get back to a little bit of red and blue. Riley Nelson, former Cougar quarterback, talking some BYU, talking a little bit of Utah, talking some Big 12. Kansas State coming in to take on the Cougs. Riley Nelson joins me in 3 minutes on the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700. Home and ESPN 700 have been partners for a very long time. Carissa from the Road Home stopping by to tell us about a new initiative happening at the Road Home. Carissa, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell me about Changing Seasons, Changing Lives, this new fall fundraiser.
Yeah, so it's our brand new fall fundraiser that we're starting this year. It's taking place from taking place on September 25th from 6 to 9 p.m. at the Utah State Fairgrounds.
And is this a family event? Is this like a VIP situation? What are we talking about?
No, it's totally family friendly. So we invite anyone and everyone to come. Those that are 11 and older are $50 to get in, but those that are 10 and under are absolutely free to come join us.
And where can we get tickets?
You can get tickets at theroadhome.org/changing seasons.
I'm looking at these. You got bounce houses, obstacle courses, bungee runs. Can adults do those things, or is that just going to be exclusive to the kids?
The only one that they can't do is the bounce house, but the obstacle course and the bungee run, absolutely. We would love to have the adults participate.
Sorry, James. No bounce house fun for James Peterson. He's going to throw a tantrum about that. Food and drinks provided?
Yep. Food and drinks are provided. The only drinks that are not included with your ticket are alcohol purchases. Those have to be made on site per drink you consume. Ooh. So it's going to be great, though.
I'm seeing desserts from Gourmandise, Ruby Snap. This is going to be a fun event. Yeah. September 25th, 6 to 9 at the Utah State Fairgrounds in the Grand Building. Tickets can be purchased at theroadhome.org/changing seasons. Again, 10 and under, free. All of you 11 and older, $50 each. And, of course, the proceeds go to help the Road Home, which is an incredibly noble cause.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be great, and we're so excited. I mean, you get to have all these fabulous activities, have a great night out with your family, and help people overcome homelessness.
So come out, see us, September 25th, 6 to 9 p.m., Utah State Fairgrounds, theroadhome.org/changing seasons. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
Lots more to talk about on a Friday edition of the Sean O'Connell Show. We got a big game tomorrow. Let's get into this matchup a little bit deeper. Utes, Cowboys. It's ESPN 700. All right, coming up in 22 minutes, the airing of grievances here on a Friday. You get it all off your chest. You head into the weekend with a clear conscience, feeling better, and you have a big football weekend coming. Time for a little red and blue. We talk Utes and Cougs as BYU has a huge game in Provo. Red and blue segment brought to you by Standard Restaurant Supply, your tailgate headquarters. Get everything you need to make your tailgate epic. Standard Restaurant Supply is 3500 South, West Temple, and online at standardrestaurant.com. Joining me for some red and blue, Riley Nelson, former Cougar quarterback, one-time analyst on the Cougar radio broadcasts. Riley, welcome to the show for the first time. Appreciate you.
Yeah, so glad to be on with you.
All right, I want to start with the blue part of this red and blue. BYU hosting Kansas State. Kansas State might be, I don't know if they're the best team in the Big 12. They deserve to be in that conversation, certainly, but they are playing the best football right now of all the Big 12 teams. They're ranked 13th in the country. Their quarterback is incredibly dynamic. They are favorites in Provo. Your assessment of Kansas State when you cut on that film and just kind of the overarching sense of what this team is capable of?
Well, I'll tell you first, because this is the red and blue segment, and I'll get to the blue first, but like who'd have thought that as Utah and BYU get back together in a conference, that the first conference weekend is you got all the teams are 3-0, Kansas State, BYU 3-0, 3-0, and then Utah and Oklahoma State 3-0, 3-0. 3 out of those 4 teams are ranked. And anyway, what a time! Like I remember growing up as a kid in the '90s, and football in the state of Utah. Let's be honest. At that time, when Majerus had the Utes going to Final Fours, and the Jazz were playing in the finals. We were a basketball state.
We were a basketball state. You're right. Yeah.
And like football was struggling for relevancy, and now here we've got 2 undefeated football matchups to kick off conference play in the Big 12. If you would have told me that 20 years ago, I'd have called you crazy. But I tell you, I'm just still tickling, pinching myself that we're here. So that's awesome. But, as I watch the Kansas State, which, it's interesting going back to that Tulane game for Kansas State. Now, they had to go on the road. They had to go to New Orleans, and so that's always a little bit of a tough matchup. And Tulane's definitely been a respectable, if not, very good program in recent history. But watching that Kansas State game against Arizona, obviously that defense is one that isn't scared of anybody. In there, you got Fifita, and you got that wide receiver who was Pac-12 Freshman of the Year last year, who were lighting it on fire. And they hold those guys to 7 points and really just totally stifle them. So I think Kansas State that's going to be first and foremost to them. A lot of people talk about this quarterback. I got to be honest. I think he garners more attention than his play deserves because he's got those locks flowing halfway down his back. No, he's a good athlete and he runs, but like when I watch this Kansas State team, first thing that stands out to me is that defense wanting to impose its physicality on the opponent. And then on the offensive side of the football, I go back to Kansas State's contemporary was a guy named, I think, Colin Klein or something like. Anyway,
Colin
big
Klein.
big old corn-fed guy. He threw it good enough, but really he was a tremendous leader, put his body on the line, was a great rusher. I kind of see that now. Colin was more of a big, strong guy. The QB on this week's team is a little bit more of a kind of a wide receiver that's playing quarterback, in that he's super quick, he's really fast, he can break it for 60. But the fact remains the same that Kansas State is going to start with establishing the run, and they're going to keep coming back to the run while that defense imposes its will, try and shorten the game on a night in Provo that's going to be where LaBelle Edwards Stadium is going to be rocking. And, that I think that's going to be, I think as they've gone throughout this week of preparation, I think those are the things that they've been hammering on.
So BYU's been solid so far in run defense. They're giving up just over 100 yards a game. You got, Jack Kelly, transfer linebacker from Weber State, who's one of the best players at that position right now in the conference. And it's only a 3-game sample size. But when you say Kansas State's going to try and establish the run, you're absolutely right. They're the second best rushing offense in the Big 12 right now. Can BYU stop it? Because if the game comes down to you're at home, you got to protect that home field, and you got to stop what this Kansas State team is going to try to do and bully you around. Are they capable right now, both talent-wise and health-wise?
So I got to tell you, being part of the media days and stuff, it was funny because it was going into the 2020 year, I believe, or maybe it was 2021. I can't remember if it was going into Zach's final year or going into Jaron's first year, but they had a lot of continuity. I think it was going into Zach's final year. So that year they went 11-1, the COVID year. And I remember interviewing Jeff Grimes for one of the media day pieces, and I was like, "You got a lot of guys coming back. You got to be excited." He goes, "Well, that's a double-edged sword. Like we weren't, we didn't play up to expectations last year, and we got the same guys coming back to line up again. So you would hope, and everybody just assumes that they're going to take that one step forward, but it's never a guarantee. Obviously, that year they did, and that offensive line, played really well. Brady Christensen gets drafted. It ended up proving true. But I feel that way about this BYU. The reason why I talk about that is that BYU defensive line, like Tyler Batty and Mangelson and Nelson. Like I feel like I've been calling these D-line ever since I was on the call, and this is my second season away. I feel like I spent a couple years calling those names when I was on the call, and yet here they are still playing. So I do think because of the experience and the way that those guys are so battle tested, I think they got a chance. And then, as much as I kind of love the contingency of like Kafusi and Thule and Bywater, I thought those guys were like good players. Like Glasser's been a revelation for me. I love the way that dude plays. Kelly is just like your prototypical wants to go nose to nose with everybody on the field as a linebacker. And Harrison Taggart's kind of who, transferring from Oregon, highly recruited out of high school. He seems to kind of be rounding into his own. So as much as I love kind of the Kafusi, Thule, Bywater days, I do think they've upgraded at linebacker. So when you look at the depth and battle-tested, hardening of the defensive line combined with, I think, is one of the better, linebacker cores that they've had in recent memory, I think that defense is going to be up to the test.
All right, Jake Retzlaff. There was a question through camp, is that actually a battle? And they brought in a veteran guy who started a bunch of games in the Big 12 Conference in Bohannon, and it was going to be down to the wire. And at least on paper, and at least publicly, that's how it went. And Jake Retzlaff ends up emerging as the starter, and he's looked decent so far, and he's made some great plays. He's made some big mistakes, and that's kind of the scouting report on him. He's a home run strikeout type of guy. I think getting closer to the home run guy than being the strikeout guy, but having played that position at this school, your thoughts on Retzlaff, and especially in a big matchup like this one?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is, and I think they've been able to stay healthy up front, but, him losing Ropatian and L.J. Martin behind him. And I also think they've been able to stay relatively healthy on the edge, Chase Roberts and Marion and Lassiter and JoJo Phillips, Parker Kingston. That tight end contingency has stayed relatively healthy and available. But I ran into it a little bit in 2012 when similar thing. We lost two of the three top running backs on our depth chart. We were at this point, so we were week 4, and we had already lost of our kind of rotation of 7 linemen. We'd already lost 4 of our 7 offensive linemen. We had our ex and Ross Oppo was dealing with a shoulder and a hamstring. Our leading touchdown receiver was Kanye Kuafrila at tight end, who had just pulled his groin in the game before, and we were kind of limping into this middle stretch of the season, or the second quarter of the season. And one of the things that I look back and evaluate is I tried myself to make up for all of that. Now, interesting thing, I was dealing with an injury of my own, which probably wasn't wise to do that, but I was trying to make up. I look around and I see us hobbled, and I see how thin we were at that position. I was like, okay, I gotta put this on my shoulders. I don't. If I'm Retzlaff, if I'm Roderick, I'd be like, listen, man, it's on your responsibility to play quarterback, not make up for the fact that we have, that we've got some wide receiver, that we got some running backs out, or the fact of anything else. You go out and you do your job. That added stress of being down running backs or whatever, that's on the staff to scheme. Like Roderick should say, that's on me and the other offensive coaches to put together a game plan that wherever we are strong, to emphasize those areas, and wherever we might be thin due to depth or talent or otherwise, to create a game plan where we're not exposed. and whatever weaknesses we might have. So for a guy that is who you cannot, you can go back and forth on his play, his mechanics, his risk taking and all of that, but no one's ever questioned his fire as a competitor. So as a guy like that, as an offensive coordinator, you got to lead out and saying, listen, man, you play your game. Don't try and compensate for any other deficiencies that you may perceive in the offense. Allow us to do that through game planning, and you go out and execute and lead.
Riley Nelson, our guest here for some red and blue on a Friday. BYU set to host Kansas State tomorrow. Utah on the road in Stillwater to take on a tough Oklahoma State team. Before we get to the red side of this and your thoughts on the Utes, because I do want to pick your brain there. Shohei Ohtani had an all-time game last night. I'm sure you saw all this, and he's having an all-time season. But last night's performance was ridiculous, and it sparked a question for me, and I put it out there, the best Utah football individual game that my listeners have seen. We got a bunch of great picks. And, of course, the same question comes to mind for BYU. What's the best individual BYU football performance that we have seen? And, you and I I'm a little older than you, but we're in the same age. So we probably didn't see some of the great Bosco and Detmer games and things like that. For me, Kyle Van Noy's Poinsettia Bowl was like maybe the best defensive performance I've ever seen. It's actually rare for a defensive player to win the game single-handedly for a team. He did that with his turnovers and his touchdowns. So that one for me is the best individual performance I've ever seen from a Coug in a game. But I wanted to get your answer on that question. What's the best one you ever saw? One player, one game.
Yeah, you took mine. So since you took mine, I'm going to double down on it and take everybody's memories back to the first game of the 2011 season, where KVN did the same thing at Ole Miss. Now, it was week one. It was non-conference. It wasn't bowl game. But it was very similar thing. So in the Poinsettia Bowl, you had a forced fumble that was recovered for a touchdown, and then he had a pick six. So he outscored himself. Similar thing. Strip sack, recovered in the end zone by Brandon Ogletree for a touchdown. Interception, got tackled inside the 10 that then led to our to our other touchdown. It was an offensive touchdown, obviously, but like you could have attributed 14 points to Kyle, and I think our defense held them to like 10 or 13. But like he single-handedly won it. So Kyle is the first guy that comes to me. Cody Hoffman had a couple of those games for me, and then obviously I played with like Max and Dennis and Harvey, and I came in on the heels of Austin Collie, and I remember some of those guys' performances, but because they had so much talent, right? It was Max, Harvey, Dennis, and Collie all on the same teams. It never really fell so squarely on one guy's shoulders. And then I don't have a specific like game because all the different highlights blend together. But I remember that 2001 series just having it felt like it was the same play of Luke Staley getting to the sideline and just winning foot races for 60 and 70-yard touchdowns. But I'm sure there was a couple of performances back then in the 2001s or in that 2001 season, like where Luke Staley would be. I'm having vague. I can't remember quite the game or quite the opponent. Then the other one that I'd say is the other ones I'd throw in there: Jamal Williams versus Toledo. And I think that was like 2014, the 55-53 game. And he just went off. And then Taysom Hill against Texas when like he ran for 230-something. And I remember he had like 70 or 80 yards wiped out in penalties. So you asked for one. I'm going to agree with you with Kyle because Kyle's my boy. I played with him. Obviously, his career has spoken for itself, going on being a multi-time Super Bowl winner and continuing as a 10-year vet in the NFL to, get sacks and contribute and everything like that. So, like, Kyle's my first answer, but I threw another handful in the mix for you there.
I appreciate that. I actually I went on a recruiting, they used to give the recruits, they probably still do at BYU. They used to give like the front row tickets behind the visitor sideline. I think it was the first game of the year. And it was BYU Tulane, and Luke Staley went for 14 yards a carry in that game. 10 carries, 142 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I think he played a half in that game, and I was just like, that's not a human being. I'm a high school kid, like thinking that I'm going to be a college linebacker, and I'm like, well, I could never tackle that guy because, oh my gosh, Luke Staley was an absolute man amongst boys and obviously went on to win a Doak Walker and his career, unfortunately, waylaid by injuries. But, yeah, Kyle Van Noy, absolutely incredible. Luke Staley, as a college player especially, unbelievable. And I'm sure BYU fans and hardcore Cougs would have a bunch of great examples as well. We got some good ones from the Utah fans. So your thoughts on Utah versus Oklahoma State? Because I'm not going to pretend that we don't have red goggles on here on the home of the Utes. And I'm not going to pretend that we're not always looking at the most optimistic viewpoint of Utah football. And I don't expect that from a former BYU quarterback. But you are a guy who I know has a lot of respect for the way that these Utes play the game sometimes. So what do you think of that matchup in Stillwater?
Yeah, so the biggest thing I've heard about, and Utah has been universally lauded and loved, and they've essentially been crowned as the, as the champion of Big 12 and all the preseason stuff, which I think a team like Oklahoma State, which has a lot of legacy and tradition in the Big 12, is going to take a little bit of offense to. So there's going to be that, but the few voices where I've heard that maybe express some caution or maybe aren't ready to just hand it over to Utah are one that, look, towards the, Washington put together a good program that was kind of built on physicality and line play, right? With the recent teams that they would, like the Penix team and some of those teams. But and there was at times like Utah seemed to be challenged maybe a little bit. There was a time there where Oregon had, a bunch of early round draft pick on the offensive line and was able to move that BYU defensive. But for the most part, it felt like in the Pac-12 during the Utah days that everybody else wanted to play, a version of padded 7-on-7, and Utah wanted to get down in the dirt and wrestle you, which, by the way, I subscribe to that way of playing. I think that we saw it with Michigan last year. We saw it with Alabama through their run. And despite Patrick Mahomes and all the attention that he garners, you look at Chris Jones and you look at that Kansas City offensive line, they still are a very physical football team. I believe that at a championship level, there is no circumventing the physical aspect of the physicality of football. And so you got a game in Stillwater where Oklahoma State might be taking a little offense to the fact that everybody's just crowned this new team coming in. Oklahoma State has been, over the years, they've kind of gone air raid this, but with what's Ollie Gordon and him kind of being their premier player, and Texas State kind of hanging their hat on the fact that we're physical. I do think I'm excited to see how Utah responds. I think they're capable of responding. I tend to agree that Utah probably has a better track record of being that high-level physical player than Oklahoma State does. But they are on the road, and you've got Cam coming. I know it was a very minor injury. I don't think the injury is going to play a role, but just the rhythm of a season, it always is awkward coming off a week that you have to miss, even if it was going to be, somewhat of a glorified scrimmage against Utah State if Cam were in there. So I think it's going to be an intriguing matchup. I probably still am on Utah just simply because I think their depth of talent at different positions is a little bit deeper than Oklahoma State, but I think this game's going to be definitely less than a touchdown. I'd even say somewhere around a field goal simply because, it's on the road and you got those kind of first matchup dynamics.
Last thing before I let you go, has Bronco called you and tried to get you down there on the staff at New Mexico yet?
Yeah, he doesn't even meet, dude. Jason Beck. I'd love to coach quarterbacks under Jason Beck and how well he's done and all of that. The land of enchantment, as enchanting as the land of enchantment is, I'm a Wasatch Mountain born and bred, so it'd be pretty tough to get me down there. But I'm happy. Look, he's going to get that thing turned around, and who knows what happens with New Mexico with those teams leaving to the Pac-12 and where he ends up. But one thing's for sure, give him 2-3 years and like clockwork, that thing's going to be turned around. It's funny. We stay in close touch, and coming out of college, he always said, you'd make a great coach. But I never could quite get on board with whether you do good or you do bad, at least for the first 20 years of your career, whether you do good or you do bad, you're moving on every 3 months. And God bless coaches' wives and coaches' families because those coaches can be so meaningful in the lives of players, like Mendenhall was for me. But boy, it ain't for the faint of heart. And if you're the type that either has roots or wants to put down roots, that's kind of me in northern Utah. It's a very tough profession to convince yourself to get into.
Yeah, one of my very best friends, a guy you know well, Jan Jorgensen, is on his staff down there in New Mexico, and they got a great thing going on. I agree with you. I think they're going to turn that thing around, and I hope that the instability that is way beyond their control with the Mountain West Conference and stuff doesn't hurt them too bad. But you're right. It's not a it's not a job for people who are like waffling or somewhat uncommitted to the coaching world, because you got to move all the time. And Bronco's doing well for himself and has done well for himself financially. But when you're an assistant coach climbing that ladder, holy cow, you go from making like $30,000 at the low level to hopefully you get a job and can make several hundred and maybe even $1 million if you're at a big power school. It just is way too much uncertainty for me. Those coaches, it's a calling, not a job. That's for sure.
Yeah, no question. Like I said, God bless them and the families that support them, because they do make tremendous. I mean, a big guy. We were talking about KVN earlier. I know KVN still. You listen to interviews that he does and stuff. Mentions Kelly Papinga, who's obviously back at BYU, and the impact he had on him, not just in his development as a player, but maturing as a person. And I have, the relationship that I was able to develop with Brandon Doman and still maintain to this day, and Coach Mendenhall and all that. We need good men in football that are willing to take that risk, and good families that are willing to support them as they do that. So I'm glad that there are valiant souls out there like Jan and like others who are willing to do it.
Riley, appreciate the Coug perspective here for some red and blue. Thanks for joining the show.
Happy to be with you.
That's Riley Nelson, former BYU quarterback, maybe someday future coach, but you heard his thoughts there. And it really is. I mean, I guess we haven't really talked about that a lot on this show. It is a calling. Yes, when you get to that highest level, you are rewarded very handsomely for your success if you can get there. But the grind of being a coach in college football, even when you do make the big money, you are working so damn much. Those guys put in so many hours, and it's not just actual game planning. It's not just grinding tape. It's in recruiting. It's everything. There's always some demand. There's a phone call coming at 3 a.m. on a Sunday because the players got out early and they went to the club, and who knows what happens. I mean, it is not for the faint of heart. But the guys who do it, they love football in a way that you and I, who think we love football, we can't really understand. I mean, I love football. Football's been a big part of my life. My guy, Jan Jorgensen, I mean, we've lived together. We are super, super close. He's a brother to me. He loves football in a way that even I can't fathom, and he understands football in a way that I can't fathom. He understands football and talks about it like when we have Eric Weddle on, and you can tell when he flips into that mode of he's just like an encyclopedia. He's a savant on football. To make it to the highest level in coaching, to be a position coach even on one of these staffs, that's where your level has to be. You and I, we don't really get it. We try to, but we don't really get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the dedication that it takes to, especially at the college level, when you have to recruit your team, now they have GMs, I guess, but you don't have the old line used to be, you didn't have a GM to go sign players for you like you do at the NFL level. College, the coaches have to do that. Yeah, and even with the GMs, they're still going to have to do that.
They still do. If you're Kyle Whittingham and you send Bobby Blecken to go get Jerome Miles, he's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, he doesn't feel like you value him enough if you're doing that.
So yeah,
for sure.
You still got to go.
It's you're not just coaching at the college level, as we all know. So even the position coaches, it certainly takes way more dedication than I'm willing to put towards a game. And so yeah, like you said, not for the faint of heart. Be cool to see Riley Nelson on one of these sidelines, BYU or maybe New Mexico. Under Bronco Mendenhall, I think he'd do a good job.
He's a sharp guy. So big thanks to him for joining the show. We're going to try and do red and blue every Friday, get the BYU perspective on things.
And I think we're going to have Riley Nelson every week. I think during the week we might sprinkle in some other guys. But
you're going to sprinkle in some more Cougs?
But Fridays, I mean, for red and blue anyway, but for Fridays, I think Fridays at 1, Alonzo, I think, has booked our guy Riley Nelson every week. So excited for that.
I look forward to that conversation. He's a level-headed, intelligent analyst, and I thought he did great work when he was on the radio broadcast, and he moved on from that by like his own volition. It was too much of a commitment because he had young kids, or has young kids, I should say. So, the weather is still gorgeous, but it's not going to be that way for very long, which means if you're a golfer, some of that golf that you love is going to migrate south. And Black Desert Resort in St. George is not just a place for you to golf. They're also bringing back the PGA Tour to Utah for the first time in more than 60 years. October 9th through the 13th, Black Desert Resort, PGA Golf comes back. BlackDesertEvents.com. That's where you can get your tickets. Follow them on Instagram at Black Desert Championship. For the first time in 6 decades, you could be on our home soil here in Utah watching PGA golf at the Black Desert Championship. Airing of grievances coming next. Get Alonzo on the phone. He's at Boone Pickens Stadium. We need to talk to him. I know he's got a grievance or two to air. I want to hear from you, 877-353-0700. You can call it. You could tweet me at Real OC Sports. Get it off your chest. Air your grievances, and let's unburden ourselves for the weekend. Sean O'Connell Show on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700. It's time for the airing of grievances, a Friday tradition here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Get it off your chest. Whatever's bothered you, whatever's bothering you, sports-related or not, 877-353-0700. You could call us. You could text us. You could tweet at me at RealOC Sports. Let's get it off our chest. And our guy Alonzo joins us from the road. He's producing the broadcast for tomorrow's game. He'll be on with he won't be on, but he's the reason you'll be able to hear Bill Riley, Stevenson Sylvester, Scott Mitchell, and company as Utah takes on Oklahoma State at Boone Pickens Stadium. Alonzo, you got us?
I do. Do you have me?
I have you. Hear you loud and clear. You sound lovely. You sound great.
I don't sound as lovely as you, though.
Oh, well, I don't expect you to. I'm the radio professional here.
That's true. That's true.
Your
voice is handsome.
You're the ghost behind the scenes. You know what? We're going to let you go first. Air your grievances.
I am quite upset that the national media is not covering Ohtani doing the 50-50 thing a little more bodaciously. I understand that baseball is not the primary sport right now because football is what runs the bankrolling, if you will. But I'm quite triggered about that, and not because I'm a Dodger fan, but because baseball is not only America's pastime, but he is the Babe Ruth of this era, and I will fight you about that.
Okay, you don't have to fight me about it. I'm with you. I don't know if we need even more Ohtani coverage because I'm seeing a lot today. But
yeah, but today, but not overall though. Like
look,
prior in the lead up to, like remember when we were younger, when Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa were chasing, 67 respectively. Like that was all over the place. I understand it was also in the summer, but we didn't get that with Ohtani.
All right. Well, grievance aired. That's fine. Can I air a preemptive grievance?
Sure.
This is a preemptive grievance. I'm airing a grievance against the architect of Boone Pickens Stadium because you sent me a picture of how narrow that sideline is, and I saw one on Bartle's Twitter account as well. It's comically narrow. Like
yes.
the fans are sitting on top of your helmet. You can't
literally.
The coaches can't coach without the fans knowing exactly what they're being told on those sidelines. So I don't know I don't know how that's going to affect the game, but I'm airing a grievance on that because it could be a problem.
So I walked out onto the field when we got here earlier this morning. This place is going to be loud. It's going to be very loud. And I mean, I kid you not. Like, when you go to the backyard and your wife is like, hey, can you measure how far this is so you can build a shed, and you do the foot measurement thing? It's like 2 feet. It's not even fair. And apparently the fans here on the sidelines, they have like these clappers that they just bang on the wall. It's going to be right up in your business. Like the benches are literally up against the wall. That's how close everything is.
How hot is it right now?
I am very sweaty. It's very, and apparently it's only going to get hotter. It's supposed to be very hot.
You know what I love about that answer? I thought you'd give me like an actual degrees Fahrenheit. How hot is it right now? And instead you're just like, well, I'm sweaty, so it's hot.
Yeah, I am just sitting here talking to you, shooting the breeze, and I am drenched in sweat.
That's fine. That's we know that's going to be the case.
Yeah, shout out to Brock Heward, who I saw earlier, who's going to be in a suit tomorrow, drenched in sweat in the booth 2 doors down from us.
Oh, gross. Is it an open booth? Do they have the window open?
Open booth. And again, it's going to be even hotter tomorrow, so it's going to be tough. Big shout out, by the way, to the truck drivers who are sitting in here with me. As you were saying that apparently the broadcast doesn't happen without me. If these two guys don't do what they do, we don't have football. So shout out to Don and Kent.
Yeah, shout out to both of them and everyone who does that job for every team in America. It is very thankless. It is a long haul over the road, and you never ever ever hear. You notice how we never hear this? You never hear about, well, these helmets didn't show up. This guy should be playing today, but they didn't have his cleats. Like the operations behind these sports, really, people do such an incredible job. Do a better, more reliable job than the athletes themselves do, quite frankly. So shout out to all of you out there who are actually making this happen. Alonzo, appreciate your grievance and your heat. We got to get we have a call on the actual Dish Pros line, 877-353-0700. Christopher has a grievance to air. What do you have, Christopher?
Yeah, the grievance that I have with basketball season upon us, I've been seeing on various like Instagram, Jazz channels, jazz pages, where they'll ask the question, "Oh, what do you miss about? Do you miss this player, that player, blah blah blah, blah whatever?" And the one that gets under my skin is this love affair that Jazz fans have with Donovan Mitchell. The problem I have is that this guy was here for 5 years, I believe. And the very first chance he gets, he throws the whole city and the state under the bus with absolute nonsense. If you recall, he went into detail about a run-in that he had with police. He got into how he was upset about how he couldn't get certain legislation and bills passed that weren't being passed anywhere in America, but he couldn't get any traction with it here in Utah. And he ultimately talked about how uncomfortable and how refreshing it is to be in Cleveland and play with around people that look like him. Now, let's just pretend that Lauri Markkanen had come to Utah and said, "Oh, it's so refreshing here in the Delta Center for me to play amongst people that look like me." That's absolutely crazy. So this guy, we draft him, make him a multi-millionaire, give him generational wealth, and the very first chance he gets, he sets the organization back 20 years in race relations, knowing.
Okay, Christopher.
Yeah, Chris, we're done with that one.
Thank you for getting that
Thank you for getting off your chest.
Christopher. Look, here's the thing. A couple of things there. I understand people feeling some type of way about Donovan Mitchell saying what he said about being a black man in Utah. None of us know what that's like. I guess maybe Christopher knows what that's like. I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose.
I don't know what that's like, okay? Also, perception is reality. Your experience is your reality. So we have no idea what Donovan felt like as a star here. And I do have to push back a teeny bit on we did him some huge favor by drafting him and giving him generational wealth. Look, these guys earned their position in the NBA and in the world. Like that's just – if we hadn't drafted, and we being the Utah Jazz, the state of Utah didn't draft him, Utah Jazz did, hadn't drafted the man, somebody else would have. He would have achieved probably the same things and achieved generational wealth. The analogy of what if Lauri Markkanen came and said, "Oh, you know, I'm happy to play." Effectively, the implication is effectively play in a stadium that's full of all other white people. We just have to stop pretending that it's the same thing. I know, I understand the logic. I really do. It's not the same thing.
It's not going to be.
You can't. There are things that can be said as a minority by you about your experience that you, as a Caucasian person, as a member of the racial majority in this state and in this country, that you can't say. We know that. That's been established. That's just the way things are now. And so getting upset about it, I'm glad you got to air your grievance here on the show. That's what it's for. And I'm not even arguing with you. I'm just letting you know that, like, that's what it is, man. You like the experience and the perception of minorities is different than it is for Caucasian people. That's indisputable. Now, whether you want to say it's better or worse, or if NBA players fall into the same type of discrimination that everyone else does, that's a complicated discussion, and we'll save it for another day. But you don't get to say, well, he can say that, but a white guy can't. That's right, yes.
Yeah.
He can say that, but a white guy can't. Yes, it's different. I'm sorry, it is. Whether you think it's good or not, whether I think it's good or not, it's allowed. All right?
Yeah, it's not we can't apply the same standard to it. We can't apply the same standard to it, and we dropped him because it was going on a little long. Mostly, he got his point across, but also because that's not what we're doing on this show. We're not. Air your grievances, but we're not going to go in detail on that on this show. I mean, thank you for calling in, though, Christopher. Thank you for listening.
3869 says grievance with giving props to those behind the scenes. What? We can't give props to the behind the scenes, folks. Ha!
Man.
I love that. Only wants the face to get the credit.
Only the face. You ready for my grievance?
Yeah, I am.
it's car related again. Apparently, I just have lots of road rage or something.
Yep.
Road annoyance, road frustration.
That might
I don't
be
know.
the problem.
People who don't indicate with their blinker when they're changing lanes. You know who you are. Some of you are doing it right now as you're listening to the show. Turn on your blinker.
Okay.
It's not hard. If only there was a way to communicate to people in other cars of what you're trying to do. Oh yeah, there is. Use your blinker. I mean, everyone does it when they're turning because obviously, but like you got to do it when you're changing lanes too. Because what if I'm right behind you and I'm trying to get right past you and think, oh, it's open, and then you just jut over without showing anybody? Like, come on, use your blinker when you change lanes. It makes everything safer and gives me in particular a little better driving experience.
I'm going to air a grievance that is topical specifically to today.
Okay. I'm ready for it.
Dale Murphy joined us on the program. It's an old grievance. I've aired it many times before, but never in airing of grievances. Grievance against the whole Baseball Hall of Fame establishment that man is not in the Hall of Fame.
Get him in there.
A multiple-time MVP doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame? What are you talking about?
He's one of the few that aren't in, if not the only one.
I mean, being an MVP type player for one single season builds a case, right? Going back to back cements that case. And now if something like you don't play any good baseball outside of those 2 years, all right, fine. I'll listen to the argument. Wasn't the case with Dale Murphy. He had a great career on top of those 2 MVP back-to-back seasons. Come on. So there's my grievance with the Baseball Hall of Fame. On a day where baseball has taken center stage, even in football season, because of Shohei Ohtani and the glorious game he had, the glorious season he's having, grievance aired. Also, if I'm Pete Rose today, I'm airing grievances all over the place that Shohei Ohtani can be involved in a multi-million-dollar sports betting scandal, and we're all just like, oh, yeah, it was definitely not him. It was definitely his interpreter. And we're just like, I mean.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough for Pete Rose today. Yeah.
Guys, here's what I think. And you can air your grievance with me if you disagree. Shohei Ohtani was involved with the betting, okay? He was. And sports betting is not illegal like it used to be. Sports betting is not a taboo like it used to be. So we don't get to judge it the same way Pete Rose was judged, because when he was doing it, it was all seedy, slimy, gross bookies that broke people's fingers to collect debts and all that kind of stuff. Now it's arguably less slimy, although there's a lot of money and a lot of crippling debt and things like that associated with it. Shohei Ohtani is a transcendent baseball player, and we have collectively, all of us, decided to turn our heads and look the other way. Here's a reference for you, a movie reference for you. It's like The Town when they're clearing out the van after they've robbed the bank or the armored car, and the cop is sitting right there, and the cop just is like, nope, not messing with this, and turns the other way, so they decide to let him live. That's what we've done with Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah. Or the Detective Castlebeck from Gone in 60 Seconds at the end there when he just lets Memphis Reigns walk away after he saves his life. Dumbfounded OC.
Grievance, 5138. Grievance, families of 12.
Not Cheaper by the Dozen, not a good movie for them.
This is so funny. Grievance, families of 12. Do all 12 of you have to go to the grocery store to grab a gallon of milk? Does every family member have to be present to pick up a package at the post office? Wow. Come on. What? Why do you care if there's a whole family at the grocery store?
Too many people in the store, OC.
Now, if they're driving 12 separate cars, I got a problem because that's taking up way too much parking.
What, 12 different carts in the grocery store, maybe?
Don't people all get a kick? Like, I genuinely don't know if this is the case or not. Doesn't everyone get a kick about going to the grocery store and you see like that? It looks like a family of ducks, like just a bunch of little kids trailing the mom or trailing the dad. Isn't that funny to all of us? Isn't that just like, wow, that's a day. You're having a day trying to get like, I don't know, man. When I see other people and their kids out in public, aside from when kids are just being total little you-know-whats and the parents are doing nothing about it, I love it. If the kid's being a little turd and the parents are punishing them, love it. If the kids are being funny and silly, love it. If the parents are just carrying the cute baby, love it. Kids, man, we were all kids at one time. You can't hate kids if you're an adult. You were a kid.
That's like 3 grievances for you now. I think that one counts as a grievance against people who don't like seeing families in public.
I will air a grievance against someone who just straight up hates on families and kids. You're the problem, okay? Society, America was founded on that. That is the backbone of this thing that we wish would stay, great. And that wasn't a political statement, by the way. That was just off the cuff. I'm not making any statement there. All right. Any grievances? Any more grievances from James? Any final words?
No,
any final thoughts?
That's it. I think we got to get to a short little crosstalk with Spence, assuming he's ready for it.
I will air one more grievance, okay? Any window company not called Advanced Window Products, because I dealt with this. I remodeled my house. I replaced 30-something windows in a house. I paid a lot of money for it. That was back in 2020. It took until weeks ago before I finally had all the windows and all the sliding doors finally dialed in. At Advanced Window Products, you don't have to worry about that. Not only are they going to give you a discount, $2,500 off 10 windows or more, but the warranty is in-house. The manufacturing is in-house. The sales are in-house. All of it is in-house. You can go down to the office and watch them make your windows if you're weird like that. Advanced Window Products, $2,500 off, 10 windows or more, advancedwindows.com. Tell them that OC sent you. Crosstalk next on the Sean O'Connell Show.
So don't get divorced,
Ah! Time for some crosstalk on the Sean O'Connell Show. The Drive with Spence Checketts is coming next. Crosstalk is always brought to you by Ineos Grenadier. Go check out the Ineos Grenadier at Warner, 2400 South, 5600 West in West Valley. Browse online at WarnerIneosGrenadier.com. They've got all of the packages and all of the colors. An absolute amazing, incredible off-road sport utility vehicle, Ineos Grenadier. Spencer Checketts, how are you?
I'm well. Let me ask you a question right out of the gates. If you were to say on a random Friday night, if you wanted to go see a concert, who would you like to see? What sort of live music do you like? Because I'm looking at the concert list. I got a totally free night.
Okay.
Totally free night and then a pretty busy weekend. I thought I'd go see some music tonight. What's the Sean O'Connell live music experience, generally speaking, if you had to go see a show?
I will admit I'm not the biggest live music guy out
Okay.
there.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I love country music live. I think that translates the best typically. And, you know, the music that I really do enjoy all the time is kind of like that, 80s rock, like
all right.
80s rock, hair metal type stuff.
Okay. Good throwback.
Yeah, so cover bands, because you're not going to get Guns N' Roses rolling through randomly on a Friday night.
Sure, not usually. And the other thing that's a bummer, we don't need to do a lot on this. Because of our market size, we're a flyover market for a lot of acts. So they want to be in L.A. Friday and Saturday, or even Red Rocks, right, down in Colorado on a Friday. So we get a lot of good shows on like Tuesday and Wednesday. We don't get a ton of great shows on the weekend. Nobody gives a rip about this. I'm just thinking about going to see some music tonight.
Okay, well, I hope you find what you want.
Thank you, sir.
Friday night, great night for high school football. Some good matchups this week.
I like to grind on the all-22 of high school football on Sunday night, though.
I got to go see what Mountain Crest and Sky Ridge are up to on a Friday night.
I got to see the back-end defense for Corner Canyon before I actually make an assessment of the whole thing.
That's smart. All right, I like that. I have two questions for you before I get out of your hair.
Yeah, all good.
Don't chew up all of your clock.
All good.
Fill in the blank Friday. When you get a good deal or a hookup on this thing, it feels like a massive victory in your life. For me, it was flights or like the seat upgrade on a flight.
That's the answer. That's the answer.
It feels so good.
I was thinking about a good meal at a discount price, decent. I used to be a sneakerhead in a way that I'm not anymore because I'm an adult now, even though I'm not 200 pounds because you make fun of me.
Sorry that you're not adult size.
You make fun of me for being in decent shape for an old person. You should say, hey, I'm proud of you for taking care of yourself even though you're aging rapidly.
I'm very proud of you
Thank
for
you,
taking
Sean.
care of yourself even though you're the size of a 15-year-old.
I'm 185 pounds.
I was that size when I was 15. So
I was like 145 when I was 15. 150.
And my experience is the only experience that matters. So.
Okay. Well, now I know. And your answer actually is the correct one here. It is either free flight, upgrade to first class. Like the dopamine hit when you're waiting in the airport and the alert comes up on the Delta app. You have been upgraded first class. There's no debate. That's the answer.
I'm almost reluctant to say this on the air, but I think I pulled one over on Delta last night.
Okay, do tell.
Because my wife and I. We're taking a trip.
Very nice.
It requires an international flight.
Okay.
And I did not buy a Delta One seat. Okay. I don't do that. Those things are $10,000 round trip.
Yep.
That's not coming out of my pocket, people. I am cheap. So I bought the regular, like the Comfort Plus. Okay.
That's not a cheap option. That's I've got a PFL gig and a radio host option.
But it's barely above Coach. It's it's like a couple $100 more than Coach.
Sure.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we were on.
Okay.
And then they do that thing where you open the app and it says, hey, if you want to upgrade, this is how much it costs, and this is how much it costs in miles.
Right.
And let me tell you, Spence, normally, I look every time, and normally it's like, no, that's still way, way, way too expensive. Last night, for this brief and blessed window, the upgrade to the lay flat Delta One seat was like 90,000 miles.
For an international flight?
For an international flight.
Wow.
And I have some miles because of all my travel.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, yes.
Throw it down.
I was dancing in my living room.
As you should have been.
My wife was gone. I couldn't wait for her to come back. And I was just like, hey, check this out on the app. Do you notice that the seat number changed? And she's like, what's wrong with you? What are you trying to tell me? Anyway, So I felt like I pulled one over.
That's massive.
Yeah, it was huge.
Because for an international flight, when you're able to lay back and actually get decent sleep, it changes the whole thing. You know this because you travel a lot. They say it takes 1 day to recover for every time zone you travel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and by the way, test it out. Like, if you know how to travel, if you know how to get some rest, if you hydrate, if you're smart about it, yes, you can recover quick. But you will notice that if you travel multiple time zones, it takes you 1 day per time zone to kind of feel right. So if you can sleep on an international flight, it's a game changer.
Last thing, and I'll get out of your hair. Shohei Ohtani with an all-time individual performance last night, and obviously a part of an all-time season as well. But it begged me the question, the best performance, I said Utah football. I also brought up Kyle Van Noy's Poinsettia Bowl for BYU. We've had some great individual performances. I won't limit you to Utah football or BYU football, but a sports viewing experience that Spence Checketts had where he was just like, that might be the best game I've ever seen.
Kobe's 82, more impressive than Wilt's 100. Wilt Chamberlain was playing the New York Knicks. Their starting center was hurt. Their backup center was 6'5". There was no 3 seconds. Wilt was a beast, but they just threw it into him, and all he did is pivot and drop it in the bucket. And I saw Kobe's 82 against Toronto. I wasn't there, but on television, and I've never seen an individual scoring effort like that. That's a really good question, though. I said this to Porter yesterday. We don't do a ton of baseball. I miss it because I grew up in a baseball hotbed. I played it up until I was about 14, 15. It's debatable whether or not you should do that in this market, but what's not debatable is we probably don't talk enough about what Shohei has done this year. And watching that last night, it's just, never really seen anything like it.
Transcendent.
Yeah, amazing.
All the hyperbole you can throw at it fits. He's unique. He is singular as a baseball player, maybe ever in the 130-year history of a game.
And he has a 3.7 ERA, and he strikes out 11 per 9, right? Like, he didn't even pitch this year. He's going to pitch next year. Like, truly, he puts together 2 or 3 more years like this, greatest of all time.
Greatest of all time?
Yeah, it's amazing. Really is.
Spence, if I could chime in here, I wonder what you think might be the greatest Jazz performance you've seen.
That's a good question. When Karl Malone was snubbed for the All-Star team, what was this, 93, 94? He went and laid like 62 on Milwaukee a couple of nights later. That was pretty phenomenal. I'd have to think about it. That's the first one that comes to mind for me. Donovan had a couple of playoff games in the bubble where I'm like, dude, I'm not sure that I've seen much like this. It would probably be a Karl game. I'd have to think about it. The first one that jumps right off the page is what he did to Milwaukee after he was it was 92 because they named AC Green the starter instead of Karl. And so Karl said, okay, watch this. And he went out and hung like 62 on Milwaukee.
I guarantee it upset Karl even more because AC Green was like, he's like, nerd.
I'm sure.
Virgin. Loser. Karl probably hated that about AC Green.
I'm sure he did. AC, may he rest in peace, I believe, right? I think AC left us.
Did he?
But my man loved Jesus, and that's all right.
I got to be careful about that. I am always wrong when I think someone has already passed
Oh, you know
away.
what? No, J.R. Reed died. AC Green's still alive. My bad.
Sorry, AC.
Hang in there, AC. Enjoy your remaining years.
What's coming up on the drive?
Oh, we got mostly college football. We'll do a little RSL. Pablo Mastroeni's going to stop by, and then we're going to replay your conversation with Cam. That's the question. I was at a golf tournament this morning. Everyone I saw, is he playing? Is he playing? I'm like, I think he is. We're going to bring in Chris Kamrani, Rojo too. So mostly college football with a little RSL on a Friday.
Stay tuned for the drive with Spence Checketts. Thanks for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700.